Welcome to the ASTROLABE. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. Oh man, this is going to be a long one. I'm just going to put it right out there, right at the beginning. I might have an hour's worth of videos alone in this one, not to mention all the things I'm going to say. Get some oinks in the chat. I see him there. Shout out to Pig Dirk. Hit the like button and buckle in, because we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, and I thought about pushing off some for tomorrow, and I was like, nope, we're just going for it. We're just going to do it today. So 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever. We're going until we're done. Hopefully you guys are prepared for some very good stuff. We live in the most entertaining times imaginable. You cannot possibly deny that we are blessed to live in interesting times. There's no point in even having, like, a couple times recently I've been like, oh, maybe as I fall asleep I should just like watch an episode of a TV show or something. You know, just like prop my phone up and watch something and drift off, and I'm like, no, I can't find a single TV show that would be interesting, that would be more interesting than just reviewing the day's news or happenings or catching the group chat or the Kingpill Discord. Kingpill.com. A place of endless entertainment. Real life is more entertaining and interesting than the best TV show. It's so great. All right. Gaga is in the chat. Shout out to my dear sweet mother-in-law. She is there, dropping oinks. Welcome to Jay Ford, tuning in from Twitter. A powerful mutual. All right. So let's dive in. First of all, I need to know which one of you is this, because I know it's one of you guys out there. You gotta raise your hand, and you gotta admit it. Hold on. Let's get that beginning again. Oh yeah. You know this dude is cool.
Well, hey, I just wanted to mention I brought your chilies. I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate. I saw on the app that you left a 25% tip. And I'm glad someone finally got the memo, because everyone knows it's standard protocol these days to leave a 25% tip and up. Especially with how fast I get here. Anyways, I think you qualify for me to leave you one of my skills. So,
skill check.
So along with, like, just the, I saw you got the cheese sticks, and we actually got those cheese sticks that string when you pull them apart. Not like Applebee's and places like that where it just breaks in half and doesn't string like Chili's. But anyways, thanks for that tip. Let your friends know too. Get them all to tip like that. But anyways, I'll leave you with this little bit of my skills because of that good tip. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I want my Chili's baby back. Applebee's ain't got shit on us. Hey, peace.
And the Heelys. So this gave me an idea. could this young fellow, Jay Ford is admitting it is him. He's taking responsibility. So Jay Ford, listen up here. I got an idea for you. Imagine the world's first content creator who creates content exclusively published by other people. So this is his thing right here. He goes around, he zooms up to people's cameras and does his thing with the expectation that they're going to publish it and be like, what the hell? This guy showed up here. Oh, look, it's him again. It's Jay Ford. I know Jay Ford. I can't wait for the next person to upload hit the next Jay Ford episode. So you have like this, like you would have like a social media brand, but it only exists decentralized externally. There isn't like one single place where everything gets uploaded. It's a whole bunch of different people who are uploading it. I wonder if you could actually do something with that. Andrew Starr says it can't be Jay because it's him. All right, you guys got to fight it out now. We may need to have I don't know, the equivalent of a duel where you guys, we have a beatbox off. And you have to be going around in circles on Heelys the whole time. You guys get to decide who is the real one. All right, and this took me back a little bit, but honestly, it's really funny now in retrospect that George Bush, that W, the younger one, it's really funny to kind of look back on him and be like, oh yeah, ordinary run-of-the-mill American president. Because at the time, I remember at the time, listening to all the libs talk about what a dumb yokel he was. And I mean, honestly, he kind of was a bit of a dumb yokel. But I forgot that he had this kind of aura.
To stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Probably one of the most Trumpian things that I've ever seen a non-Trump person do.
Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Thank you. Now watch this drive. Incredible. Incredible. We're going to stop those killers. Now watch this drive.
The new Prime Minister of India is, no.
And boop.
In order for us to get the framework, the groundwork to discuss a framework for peace, to lay the... All right.
He just gives up on it.
Fool me once. Shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
This gave me another idea for another content idea. Imagine with AI getting as good as it's getting. Imagine being able to produce like an alternate history of, say you produce an alternate history of W's life, and you actually you turn him into a total patriot. Like he's a patriot and he's behind enemy lines and he's this brilliant schemer and he's trying to figure out his way to navigate through. And you tell some story about him, like you present it as entirely real, like a documentary film or something. And the whole thing's AI, and just create straight up alternate history. They've done this without AI. So now it's on us. It's on us to create the alternate histories that we want to live in the context of. All right, we got another one. Paul Suda, Week 6, Trump 47. I have not watched this one yet. I'm going to do this from now on. Paul, when you send them to me, I'm not going to watch them until I play them on the Labe, so I get to live react to them. 7.5 minutes. Let's go.
I mean, I'm kind of glad they stole the last one, because that's basically what happened, because it gave them 4 years to figure out really what the deal is and to sit back and now how to go down there and punch everybody in the goddamn face. That's basically what's going on. Because he picked the right people. He's like, I'm getting everybody's going to be a goddamn pit bull, and we're going to go down there, and we're going to level this thing. And we're going to get rid of all this bureaucracy, and we're going to strike fear into the hearts of not just people here in America, but the rest of the world.
Who has elections?
Germany.
Oh, Germany. I wish them luck. We got our own problem.
I take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops.
I did know this song was coming.
Enough. He's not cutting.
I did know that song was coming, so I guess I got a little bit of a head start.
I don't think he's doing enough. He's not cutting enough. We should cut more, 20% more. It's all fat. It's waste. There's so much waste in federal government. This is great for the American people.
Kevin, I sued the state of Illinois. I sued the governor, and I said, if you don't stop, you're next. New York kept going. They were belligerent, sued New York, sued the governor. Not going to stop. So, you're going to be next if you're not watching what we're doing, and we will be successful.
You pay their salaries. You pay for the buildings they work in. You pay for every single thing they do. And if they are not following the laws, the Constitution, and the President of the United States, then they will find a new career.
It's not like I have no say-so.
But the thing here, Jesse, is we got to take a step back, because this is just barely scratching the surface. When you see what these people were saying, and thanks to Chris Rufo for putting it all out online, they were brazen in using an NSA platform intended for professional use to conduct this kind of really horrific behavior. And they were brazen in doing this because when was the last time anyone was really held accountable?
My show had value, and that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I try not to cry on TV.
She's trying so hard to cry.
The official White House page made an ASMR video of immigrants on a plane.
Donald, don't get angry.
I couldn't stand it.
Watching these people come in from jails and mental institutions and the worst criminals in the street, gang members being dropped off in buses and bussed into our country. I couldn't stand it.
My president.
Are you not going to comply with it? Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
I think that email perhaps was misinterpreted as a performance review, but actually it was a pulse check review. Do you have a pulse? Do you have a pulse and 2 neurons? So if you have a pulse and 2 neurons, you can reply to an email. This is, I think not a high bar, is what I'm saying. This is should be anyone could accomplish this. But what we are trying to get to the bottom of is we think there are a number of people on the government payroll who are dead, which is probably why they can't respond. And some people who are not real people, like they're literally fictional individuals that are collecting paychecks. Well, somebody's collecting paychecks on a fictional individual. So we're just literally trying to figure out, are these people real? Are they alive? And can they write an email?
President Trump came up and he found the destiny of the American people lying in the gutter. And he picked it up with his bare hands and he yelled, "Fight, fight, fight!" And the American people delivered their mandate to him and put it on his head. And as President Trump himself said just a few days ago, A man who saves his nation violates no law.
The president sent out a truth last weekend to Elon Musk saying he loves everything Elon is doing and he wants him to be even more aggressive because Doge thus far has proven incredibly successful in making our government more efficient.
I have found some leakers. We are continuing to get more. They will be fired. There will be consequences. And remember, when they leak information to the press in order to blow an op, they are putting law enforcement lives in jeopardy.
The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people. For years, Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer.
On paper, civil rights are supposed to mean protection from discrimination based on characteristics like race. In practice, the entire civil rights bureaucracy as it currently exists is a vehicle for an entrenched new system of discrimination based on race. The left is right about one thing, in my view. There is systemic racism that exists in America today, but it's not Jim Crow or redlining or our criminal justice system. It's the pervasive racial discrimination that exists against Asians, whites, and other disfavored groups that take place now on college campuses, in the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies, even in the halls of our own government. It goes by a bunch of different names, principally equity or DEI or CRT. You can go on, but whatever you want to call it, it's wrong.
Hi everyone, Kelly Loeffler. It's my second day here at the SBA. I could not be more excited to be here, so I thought I'd take a walk. And what I found is that exactly what's been said is true. About 90% of our employees are working from home. Well, that ends Monday with President Trump's order to return to work. It's a tremendous waste of taxpayer dollars to be paying for people and offices that are not showing up for work. So what we're going to do Monday morning, be back in the office, just like our small businesses that we serve every single day.
Oh, man. Fucking patrol Barbies. Yes. We got a patrol Barbie on the case. Oh, that's so good. I want to highlight a couple of these in here. Ian Carroll said, bring back court squires that hype our glorious leader up with mythic telling. Yes, Andrew Starr says, can't stand Posobiec. Yeah, I like him for what he is. I find him entertaining. Knowing that he, I guess on the, I don't know, what would you call the far end? There's like a continuum here where you have like slop on one end, and then you have non-slop on the other end. I can't think of how you would define the non-slop on the other end, but and we need our slop merchants. He's not as much of a shameless slop merchant as I mean, I don't know, like Hannity. You know, and Hannity has his role as well. You know, Hannity, O'Reilly, some of these guys, just pure slop merchants. And then you've got the super based side. And Posobiec kind of lands somewhere in the middle there. He picks up our talking points and amplifies them. And he's very popular with a lot of people. So, you know, I don't need every single person in my country or every single person with a public profile to be my perfect level of based. I just want him to be useful. And I think he's very useful. Anybody who complains about containment is impotent signaling. If you complain that someone is one man's containment is another man's opportunity, is another man's megaphone. So the only reason you would be concerned about containment is if you fundamentally see yourself and your people as weak. And so you could be contained by soft facsimiles or whatever. I don't have time for containment posters. I understand why some perspectives might be inclined to that direction. We'll just say that. Is there anything else in here? Oh yeah, so Ian Carroll said the growl in his voice is not something I've heard much. Yeah. Trump's like, I don't like it. I was gonna say also, where was that? Oh yeah, we got the the milfy dog murderer is coming for the illegals. what's going on with Elon's hat, man? Look at this. Like, he's got this weird, like, downslope, which I assume is because it's sitting so far up on his head that it's just, like, caving in up here because there's nothing filling it. So that tells me that he doesn't just have it balanced on top of his head. He's actually got it pulled down pretty good. He's kind of putting it under some strain. But he's got it sized, like, 3 or 4 sizes too small for his head. So I don't, like, my first thought was, oh, he's just, like, balancing this hat on top of his head, and you could see it as him being, like, it's not really his thing, but he's doing it for the kind of awkward, spurgy branding thing. Like, I wear the dark MAGA hat. I am dark gothic MAGA. It's very Elon-ish. But he's got that MFer pulled down pretty tight if it's making the top collapse down toward his head. Which just is giving me a headache just looking at it, just thinking about it. So I don't understand Elon's hat wearing philosophy. Speaking of Elon, we like clips of journos getting bullied, and we like clips of illegals getting tackled into the sand. Elon tweeted this out and said, Thunderdome vibes. Someone needs to put this to music. You hear what they're chanting? Hold on just a second. There was something, they were chanting puto, which is, it means variously from, depending on which Spanish-speaking country you're from, it can mean like bitch, or it could mean faggot, it can mean asshole, but it's interesting they're yelling at that. I wonder, I really would like to know who they're yelling at. Because it could very easily be either side. It could be the legals who are yelling at the dude and calling him a puto, or it could be them yelling at ICE and they're mad at ICE. I don't know. The other word that I can make out there was izquierda, which means left. Someone was yelling it and said it a couple of times, but I couldn't tell. Couldn't pick out the words other than that. Okay, keeping it moving here because it's going to be easy to get bogged down on stuff. So a new memo reveals that all transgender troops have been disqualified without exemption by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Quote, service members who have a current diagnosis or history of, or exhibit symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria are disqualified from military service. Service members who have a history of cross-sex hormone therapy or a history of sex reassignment or genital reconstruction surgery as treatment for gender dysphoria or in pursuit of a sex transition are disqualified from military service. Seems like the most basic of standards, but that's how far we've fallen, and we're on the way back up again. Now, of course, what inevitably happens with this sort of thing is, so this is targeting members who have a current diagnosis of or history of or exhibit symptoms consistent with gender dysphoria. Now, This would be a military organization drawing on healthcare research terminology. And as we know, healthcare research terminology is one of the fakest things out there. So I wonder what the new thing will be. So no longer will gender dysphoria be acceptable. They're going to have to pick a new thing, but I'm sure they're going to pick a new thing and try to navigate around this. And that new thing could be a new change in terminology or a new weird focus of their particular sexual paraphilias. Or it could just be a whole new different thing altogether. And then more in the you're talking about court squires who proclaim the great mythological tales of our glorious leader. Secret Service Director Sean Curran, who is this guy here, this guy caught in the famous picture, that is now the director of the Secret Service. He sat down for his first ever interview and told CBS News that he was prepared to protect Trump in prison if things turned out differently. Quote, "Look, if it came to it, I'd be sitting right next to him. That's how much I care for him. That's how much I felt that he deserved the level of protection that any of our protectees should get. There's nothing I would have not done for him." So the man was prepared. He says, "We had serious conversations about it, and I at one point told him he and I might be getting a lot closer," which drew a chuckle from a couple staffers in his office with him on the 8th floor of Secret Service headquarters. So he was getting ready to go to prison with the president if the president was sentenced to prison, which is an interesting thing to say, because it implies that the president was prepared to go to prison. And what a timeline that would have been. If I was going to pick out a director of the Secret Service, I would pick out the guy who was ready to go to prison with him. I'm just saying that. And we haven't gotten a Scott Jennings update here. I'm going to get to the Epstein list stuff, and then we're going to talk about... I've got some interesting Doge updates. Doge is getting ever more powerful, and we're getting a clearer idea of what its purpose is. I've got a number of these little stories here, just of all of the worst people in the world getting BTFO'd. And then we'll talk about Keir Starmer visiting Trump, and Trump just completely mogging on him. And then we got some stuff about about Romania and Călin Georgescu. But first of all, we haven't gotten a Scott Jennings clip recently, and he has been just taking scalps right and left.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Did Joe Biden have staff at the White House? And how many of those staff members were elected?
Well, but Scott, Elon
zero.
Musk
The answer is zero. Every president appoints people to do things for them. To call him unelected is like the most naive and ridiculous talking point I've ever heard.
Scott, I can't believe you would believe something like this, because if this was Joe Biden allowing for a billionaire,
allowing people who weren't elected to run the country for the last 4 years, yeah, I would believe that actually.
Throwing another coup like January 6th.
I would believe it if Joe Biden had unelected people running the government for the last year, maybe the last 4 years. Yeah, I believe every word of it.
You wouldn't be up in arms, Scott.
I was up in arms about it.
I think there's a difference if it was George Soros. I think the example is not, obviously everyone has unelected people in that they appoint. The difference is if it was George Soros.
George Soros does have influence over Democrats. He collects your people like Pokemon cards.
Everybody, hold on. Everybody, hold on.
Oh, he is doing the Lord's work, man. This is how you earn your way up in the media world. If you've got to start out at CNN just boxing the ears of dumb shit libs, so be it. Yeah, Jennings collecting another scalp. That's exactly it. If that's how you got to start, man, he is absolutely squeezing every last little bit of juice out of this that he can. And I'm starting to hear rumblings of people talking about him for elected office, which would be very interesting, given that he's from Kentucky. Here's another one. He says, he tweeted this one out himself. I love that he's like his own hype man. He says, I spend most of my time repeating back to liberals their own words and ideas, only to have them seconds later deny ever saying them. It's truly astonishing.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money?
This is one of those where I remind you guys that these are our enemies. This is the quality of person that makes up the ranks of our enemies. You are going to lose IQ points listening to this. I'm going to subject you to it anyways, but I'm telling you ahead of time, it's going to happen.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too small to stop Trump with whatever else is in this plan.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the government, the bureaucracy, be actively trying to stop him?
Scott has this characteristic or this feature, this ability to automatically say exactly the thing that I would say if I was sitting there in that moment. So he's like, well, their job is to try to shrink the government so that the government cannot stop Trump. Wait a second. What's that? You think that the government is there to stop Trump? So you're kind of giving the game away a little bit there, aren't you? That you see Trump as outside the government and that the government's job is to stop him. Aha! What might you call that? A deep state, perhaps?
Because he is shredding the Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship.
No matter who was in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you all made interesting.
These are pathologically stupid LARPers. These are people who grew up watching cable news, not understanding one iota of what was happening, but they picked up on the cadence and the lingo, and they're quite literally performing. This is what they think real life is just like performing the role that whatever thing they're in, I'm an actor. It's main character syndrome. These are people who quite literally don't live in reality. They live in a fake artificial thing that they've constructed for themselves.
Point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility.
Interesting that either that's a huge bitch or they've put her up on something to make her look taller than him. And he also kind of looks like he's sort of slouched back a little bit. And honestly, that would be the posture that I would take too. I'm not going to be very professional and wear my tie and talk to... I'd be like, I'm just going to kick back here and just talk shit from the sidelines while you guys are doing your little thing.
To resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually
That's
what
not
we
at all
said. We
what I
said they are
said.
upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
How
that we
is
have
Trump
seen,
shredding the Constitution?
My God, he's like...
Seriously? Do we have to give...
Save me! Someone else jump in. This is where my script runs out. I don't have something beyond this. So I said my piece, and now's where we pivot, and someone comes in and bails me out.
A civics lesson that we have. I don't know we put all power in the executive branch. The legislature.
Do you need me to give you a civics lesson? I've talked to these people on the internet. Like 10 years ago, I checked out of having these conversations with people because I realized these are retards. These are people who are meant to dig ditches. And maybe they wound up in stumbling their way into a management role somewhere because they were selected for their ability for their lack of personage. They're just a droid available to be recruited and populated with some ideas and then set loose to mechanistically go through these motions. I checked out of talking to them on the internet like 10 years ago because you start to get the sense this person has no idea what they're talking about. And so you would ask them a question and they'd say, oh, do I need to give you a civics lesson? Which is like this way to check your way, to sidestep the responsibility to continue with the dialogue. And that's when you realize, oh, I'm not like dialoguing with another human being. I'm arguing with a projection of some meme. I'm just arguing with the TV. Okay, so I'm just not going to argue with the TV anymore. These are the people who comprise the regime.
Legislative branch, the FBI, now we're in control of the military, we're silencing media. This is what you do in a dictatorship.
Are you suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I am suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're gaslighting. But when we get to the actual rubber of the road of this, it will be clear.
I'm interested in this conversation. He's going to put someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone in charge of the military?
The president is in charge of the military. That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
That's what we said. That's just straw
That's not what we
man.
said. That's literally not what we said.
That's literally.
I'm just repeating back to you your own
I
words.
did not.
This chick over here, Abby Phillip, she knows what's going on. She has been sidelined, and she knows it. She knows that she's stuck on this show, and Scott Jennings is the only reason why she gets any viewers. So she's sitting there every once in a while in these clips. You see her. She's like, yes, I have to support the thing that he's saying. I know I'm not supposed to, but we can't get too out of control here. This entire thing is a humiliation ritual for them. That's his job. Scott Jennings' job, and he's well aware of this. His job is just to ask them questions and make them humiliate themselves. Lead them around in circles and just dick them around and make meme-worthy clips, post them on the internet, and have it get 13.5 million views. God bless the man. So Jeff Bezos has announced that the Washington Post editorial board will now only write from viewpoints in support of, quote, personal liberties and free markets. The move caused David Shipley to step away as editorial editor. Quote, viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. I am of America. This is a statement from Bezos. I am of America and for America and proud to be so. Our country did not get here by being typical, and a big part of America's success has been freedom in the economic realm and everywhere else. Freedom is ethical. It minimizes coercion and practical. It drives creativity, invention, and prosperity. Bezos is to the point where he's giving boilerplate free market economic, Republican, libertarian talking points. This is a major win. Of course, this is cynical. Of course, it's a good thing that it's cynical. We want people like this to cynically follow power when our guy is the one in power. This is what bending the knee looks like. Isaac says, knee is fully bent. Yes, correct. And of course, the editorial editor steps away. Another massive win. You're telling me that the editorial editor from Washington Post just got purged? This is a unambiguous, gigantic win. All right, so now is where we talk about the, let's get a little spicy. So there was the Epstein list was supposed to be dropped today. This has been the news. The news thing is, oh, it's coming. They're building up to it. And let me start off by saying that I don't care about the Epstein list being dropped per se. I could care less. The vast majority of this, far more than is sufficiently incriminating, is already publicly known. I don't care about informing the public. I don't care about transparency. This stuff is gay. I want the federal government to do the job of being a federal government. So I want to see people prosecuted. I want to see people flipped. I want to see them leveraged and flipped on each other. I want to see these networks broken up. That's what I want to see. If they want to tell us about some of it, okay, cool, great, whatever. But I can tell that there's a lot of people out there who want to see this for their own morbid curiosity. That's the thing that's motivating them. I want to see what's on there. I want to know. I want to dig into it all. I want to read every last little gory detail. I am not going to read anything that is published. I'm not. If other people talk about it, great, cool. But we're talking about one of the largest organized crime networks in world history that is backed by probably trillions of dollars. And right now, the administration is taking an absolute lightsaber to every aspect of its power base, domestically and internationally. And they're completely remaking the entire global order. That's what they've set their sights on. So I don't need some sort of like moral victory. I want to see heads on pikes. To whatever extent making things publicly transparent facilitates heads on pikes, great. But a whole bunch of this stuff is already publicly known. A lot of these details have been out for a very long time. The majority, if not all of the Epstein list, was published a long time ago. It just hasn't come from like formal official sources. So there's no like... You have people on one hand who are like, oh, they're never going to release it. And then they're also like, oh yeah, if they released it, then it would just blow over in a few days. And we'd be onto something else. Well, yeah. So like, why does it matter whether or not they release it? Now, I think there's a lot of utility in if there's a matter of popular will here. Like, they have their sights set on doing certain things, but in order to actually overcome the hurdles to do those things is going to require a tremendous amount of political capital. Then it's very much in their interests to tease leaks and then actually follow up with more, and then actually follow up with more, and then tease and drag people along, and then follow up with more, and get people really wound up and pissed off about it. That's very useful. Getting everyone looking at it, everyone hanging on every single detail of the story as it progresses. That's if you're doing this to like capitalize political will to throw at these people, yeah, that's very useful. What that's not necessarily going to look like, if you want the story to die, then just like post all of the documents and like upload them and let people go ham on it. That's how this stuff has died in the past. There's going to be little cottage industries of people who are digging in this connection and that connection and the other connection. And there could down the line be some utility in that way as well, but that's not the only way to skin this cat. If you're hunting down organized crime networks, you want to be very selective about what you publicly release. Because part of this process is going to have to be turning people, which means taking people who would be prosecuted and leveraging dirt out of them in return for lesser or no prosecution. That's a simple fact. That is what's going to happen with some people. And all of us, like, this doesn't matter to us. If you're really emotionally wrapped up in this particular thing, it's the thing that'll make or break. If you're really dialed in like that, you got to take a step back. You don't matter to this story. It's a horrifying, awful story. If you're curious to read the details, you should check yourself. You don't want to read the details. You don't want that in your mind any more than it already is. And if you think this is like they owe me, I'm an American citizen, I pay their taxes. Okay, boomer. So I've got a number of details here, and I'm just gonna essentially present it because I think all of this together is going to give you a clear picture of exactly how things went down today. So there was supposed to be a big release, and then it seems like it kind of turned into a flop. You had a bunch of slop merchant social media influencers who wound up in like an impromptu photo op holding these binders, and then they upload the stuff on the binders, and there's basically nothing. It's all redacted. They're like, oh, they fucked us over. Oh, look at this. They're just dragging us along. But if you listen, they're telling you exactly what's happening right now. And I think some of this is intentional op, and some of this is having to ad hoc around things on the fly because that's just how this sort of thing works. There's like this particular psychological profile with people where on one hand they mock the idea of 4D chess, but then when people aren't acting like they're 4D chessing, then they're just compromised and containment. And so it's like you reject the notion of 4D chess if someone suggests it, but then you turn your nose up at people who aren't using the 4D chess. I don't understand how you get yourself into this position apart from just wanting to be this is just the mind of the black pillar. So Liz Wheeler is one of these longtime alternative right-wing media influencer. This is a particular profile that exists out there. She's got a huge following, very much a million followers. Host of the Liz Wheeler Show. What is it? Hide Your Children: Exposing the Marxists Behind the Attack on America's Kids. So this is someone that I would put in a much more on the slot merchant side of things. I don't want to say it's an entirely disingenuous grift. I think these are sincere, genuine people, but they just occupy this sort of corner of the internet. But they have huge audiences, and they've got a tremendous, especially boomers and Gen X, and then I don't know, like young mothers. This is what makes up a lot of their audience. So she says, this is the story. President Trump and AG Pam Bondi committed to releasing the Epstein files. The FBI was told to deliver the files to Bondi. They did, about 200 pages. Bondi smelled a rat because there was nothing juicy in the 200 pages, just flight logs and a Rolodex of phone numbers. No smoking gun. Still, Bondi promised to release the documents, so she prepared a binder of them. Then, last night, a whistleblower contacted Bondi and revealed that the SDNY was hiding potentially thousands of Epstein files, defying Bondi's order to give them all to her. Now remember, in the last episode, was it the last one or the one before, I shared the couple stories about Kash Patel getting in, him firing people, and there's rumors about employees being fired or arrested. There was even some going around about generals being arrested. Which I said I kind of don't think it's real, but there are some. I can't completely rule it out. If it was real, this is how you would find out about it. So saying I'm not hearing it from a reputable person totally kind of doesn't fly. So what was I going to say here with so there's already been lots of these rumors going that ever since Kash Patel, like there was this big long delay before Kash Patel gets confirmed, and then all of a sudden, as soon as Kash Patel gets confirmed, shit starts going sideways. I think there's a reason for that. And note the SDNY that apparently, as we're kind of the story's developing, like give it a week and come back to it if you can't handle yourself. Like the story's developing, we're going to find new stuff. Probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. This is going to be a developing story. There isn't some big, great Wizard of Oz behind the scenes orchestrating everything, and the outcome is not predetermined. The SDNY is where they had the dust up a couple of weeks ago when Emile Beauvais wrote that letter to Danielle Sassoon after firing her, or I think asking her to resign, because she would not drop the prosecution against Eric Adams. So she was the U.S. attorney at the SDNY. She I guess took her own walking papers, and then there was reports coming out that Emile Beauvais was basically putting them all into a room and saying, "You guys are going to sign. I'm going to give you the opportunity to come and sign on this and follow through, or I'm firing all of you." So this has already been a district that's been giving them grief and showing lots of issues. Now this is coming up again with the SDNY. And Emile Beauvais worked at the SDNY for a long time. So there's some very interesting depth and color to this story. So last night, a whistleblower contacted Bondi and revealed that the SDNY was hiding potentially thousands of Epstein files, defying Bondi's order to give them all to her. We're talking recordings, evidence, etc. The juicy stuff. Names. These swamp creatures at SDNY deceived Bondi, Cash, and you. Be outraged that the binder is boring. You should be. Because the evil deep state lied to your face. The binder's powerful because it's tangible physical evidence of the disgusting stunt the SDNY tried to pull. So this is what she's saying here, and I mean, she's incentivized to do this because she wants to find a reason why the binder is actually a good thing, but I don't think she's necessarily wrong here. Publishing this binder with nothing in it and having like a photo op with it actually works very much in the administration's benefit. Because now people are even more mad and they want someone to yell at. And so you give them the right person to yell at, which is the SDNY and any of the FBI officials who are participating in this obstruction. And now you've also given them an opportunity to actually commit documented crimes in their flurry and in their haste. So whether this is being done intentionally, which would be like the 40 chess, maybe they were foolish enough to think, oh, we could just get it shipped over here, and then they didn't send it over here. It's the last second. Well, we promised that we would publish something, so you know what? Let's publish exactly what they gave us, and people are going to be super pissed off about it, and we're going to direct that political theory onto them. Maybe that was the story. Or maybe they said, let's give them the rope to hang themselves. Let's request these documents, have them send these documents and recordings and everything over to us, knowing that they won't, and that you can then orchestrate this massive public flop that makes people really pissed off, and then you direct that political capital against them. There's a number of ways to skin this cat. Bondi is now demanding all the Epstein evidence from SDNY, plus an investigation into the persons who committed this act of defiance. The legacy media has betrayed you again and again. They gaslight you, blah, blah, blah. You serve no, blah, 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 blah. You're the media. Yes, we are. Celebrate the regular people being given access to the most powerful people in our country to report on despicable, blah, 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 blah. Be angry at the deep state, yada, 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 yada. Okay. So, this was one of the influencers who was called there, who was not part of that, who did not get caught with the pictures being taken as they walked out of the building. And now, I think all of them have said that they were not expecting. They were called in for a meeting. And they went in for that meeting. They were given these binders. They were given specific instructions that we'll get into in this video. And they walked out of the White House, and there was a press corps standing there snapping pictures of them, which seems entirely believable. Because if there's leakers and turncoats on the inside, it's very easy for them to say, hey, we know that they just got a whole bunch of nothing burgers and they're having this meeting right now, so let's call up CNN or whoever and have them send a press team over so they can catch them. This is what they did with Roger Stone. They told CNN ahead of time, and so there was a news anchor with a cameraman parked outside his house for like 15 minutes before the cops showed up. He's like, why is that guy just standing there? What's he doing? And then a little bit later, the cops showed up and he realized, oh, somebody tipped him off. This is they've run this playbook many times. So this is Savannah Hernandez. She was not caught on film, as she explains in here, but she's got some information on the details. Let me just say, having these alternative media people, everyone wants to complain about how it wasn't one of our guys. Oh, it should have been one of our guys. Don't get too big for your britches. Yes, our narratives are working their way up, but our guys are not yet, and no one owes that to us. We've got to earn that shit. What they're doing from the perspective of the administration is who are all of our people who have been very vocally supportive of us on X, who we've used to disseminate all these different narratives through on X. Let's reward them as the alternative media, because normally this would be Politico and the New York Times and WAPO and the Wall Street Journal and whoever else. They would be the ones getting these. No, we're going to give these to the so-called independent media. Like, don't get it twisted here. Every single one of these things that people want to reflexively just doom spiral about is actually a good thing. This is great. Yes, whatever you're going to release it through independent media directly out onto Twitter. And don't go through the legacy institutions at all. How is this difficult? Why do I have to say this? How is this not immediately obvious to people?
Hey guys, this is Savannah Hernandez in front of the White House with, yes, one of those Epstein file binders. Now, I want to clear something up immediately and state that nobody from the Trump admin gave us these binders and said, you guys are going to be the ones responsible for disseminating this information. They actually told us that there's going to be a press conference at any moment now, most likely this afternoon, in which all of the information in this binder is made available to the American public. Now, Pam this morning stated to us that some of the information in here is already public, and she doesn't really feel that any of this information is a smoking gun. The big story here is Pam writing a letter to Kash Patel asking him to investigate why the FBI has stopped the release of other portions of the Epstein files. So that is what is currently going on, and I wanted to come out as a journalist as well and state that, again, we are not responsible for deciding what does or does not come out. All of the information in this binder will be made public. Pam Bondi herself stated that she wants all of the Epstein files to be made public to the American people, not just to influencers or independent journalists, but that in itself has been a process. Now, one of the reasons why I have this is because the Trump admin right now is making a big push for not only transparency, but being welcoming to independent journalists who might have been looked down on, ignored, or even censored over the last 4 years. This administration is making a big push right now to allow American people to come into the Oval Office, to come into the White House and directly talk to the president, the vice president, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, RFK Jr. about what they are going to be doing for the American people. So it's really interesting to see how this administration is handling the media and allowing independent people, American citizens, to come into the Oval Office and talk directly to highest members of the administration. So I wanted to give you guys my update on this. There will be a press conference. All of this will be made public.
If we want our guys getting invited into those meetings, then it's on us to promote our guys to get them to that point. They don't owe it to us. We've got to prove ourselves. We've got to get ourselves there. Whatever institutional, algorithmic, whatever hurdles are in the way, those are just excuses. Georgie Castrati says, Bondi's an attorney. She knows what should constitute a batch of evidence in a major criminal case. This dribble was not it, and it was obvious. And she told them straight up front, she said, this is no smoking gun. This isn't going to be worth anything. So I'm trying to imagine, like some sort of alternate reality where she comes out and says that, and she's not just like, she comes out and she's like, hey, here you go. Look at that. Oh, amazing. What a great win. We're so transparent for the American people. We've released all the Epstein files. She could have easily done that, but she didn't. She said, this is what we're releasing right now. Go out and publish this, please. This is not a smoking gun. We've got shit in house we've got to clean up. How do you have a problem with this? Now, Mellon makes a fair point. He says it's not always obvious to people, not even to us. A lot of this is social intelligence, which autists lack. He says, including myself, which is why I watch this show. That's fair. Maybe this is just having natural social intelligence. I can pick up on these things. And the autism on the internet in our little circles here is very well documented. So maybe you guys, maybe that is a service that I could provide is introducing a little social intelligence here. Judge Maddie said, don't say disseminate with Savvy's picture on screen. All right, somebody hit him with the bonk. And Jeff Garrick said, this is game theory applied. Yeah, yes. And it's relatively straightforward game theory too. This isn't, you could call it 4D chess or cope or whatever, but it's kind of very rudimentary. Like this is like game theory that might show up in a made for cable news or made for cable like TV show, like NCIS or something like that. And this was I appreciate me some Ian. I love Ian Carroll in the chat. I appreciate Ian Carroll, the mustachioed one. But this is sort of the thing I'm talking about. He's his definition of a fumble. Everything in those binders should be online in PDF format already. Then you can have your Con Inc. influencer parade if you want to burn your optics down again. If any of these guys are real journalists, they'll put the entire contents online immediately, but something tells me the grift is just getting started. Well, they went and put the contents online immediately, and then it changed to they're just gonna drip it out really slowly and monetize all of it and grift us all. Okay, they're not doing that. They just published everything immediately. Okay, well, what's our next story here? Like everyone wants to instinctively jump to this sort of conclusion, like complain about who they gave it to. I don't give a shit who they gave it to. They gave it to a bunch of alternative media people who have large audiences. Like objectively, if you were sitting down here and you're mapping out your battlefield and you're evaluating your assets, then who were these? Like Liz Wheeler, Mike Cernovich, DC Drano, Scott Pressler, Jack Posobiec. Like these are the people that you would give it to. The people who are collectively going to have, I don't know, like a 250 million person audience. This is how you disseminate it through alternative media. Now, don't get me wrong. I very much would prefer to see, I was going to say Pete Quinones, but Pete wouldn't go do this. Give me a list of our guys, and I would very happily, I'd love to see them there, being the ones who are receiving this. But if we want that to happen, then we've got to work to get our guys to the threshold, to rise to that threshold where they actually are available for selection for this. Yeah, give me Orrin McIntyre. Yes. I'd say Carl Benjamin, but yeah, him not being American probably. I would still give it to Carl Benjamin. I don't give a shit. So then here is Glenn Beck reacting. Bryce said Ian is big mad he can't grift. Well, you said it. I didn't. However, there is, I will just say, there's a pretty clear conflict of interest there, you might say. He's very motivated to want this put online in PDF format for, in case there might be someone out there with a large internet audience built off of digging into PDFs, and which I think is great. I think he does a very good service. It's great to have him do that. But you got to recognize you're a little self-motivated here. This isn't some grand, compassionate agenda that you have. Let me just say, all of that data should not be published publicly in PDF form on the internet for everyone to dig through. I think strategically, those are just stories that the average person does not need to sit there digging through and reading. There's no spiritual benefit to be gained from that. Leak whatever or publicly release whatever information you need in order to effect prosecutions and sanctioning and seizing assets and whatever else. But we put them in office. We've given them the mandate. It's up to them to actually pursue that mandate. And if they don't, then we replace them with people who do. But now that we've put them in office, it's up to them to go do it. We don't need them to release every last gross little detail to us for us to scrutinize and yell about amongst each other. There are better things we can do with our time. So here is Glenn Beck's response, and pardon the audio on this. He kind of boomer texts it a little bit, and he covers the microphone with his hand or his thumb or something, but you can still hear it.
I'll maybe talk to you. Why don't you come over here, Jason? Hey, we are. I'm still at the studio, and I've just been gathering the information on the so-called Epstein client release, and I just talked to Liz Wheeler, and I was just watching her podcast because she has some additional information. But we've gone through the list, and Jason is here, our chief researcher. Jason, what was in this big briefing that was given by the president and everybody else today?
We went through the entire.
Am I seeing this right? Sorry, don't mean to distract, but
was given by the president and everybody else today.
Those little cans down here on his desk, I think that says holy water. What on earth is that?
Big briefing that was given by the president and everybody else today.
So we went through the entire 20-plus page dump that was released through the, I guess the DOJ or the FBI. It's on the website now. It's public information. And it is the biggest disappointment, I think, that you'll find. I encourage you to do your own homework on this. It's mostly procedural jargon, Glenn, heavily redacted. Basically no new information. Little bitty tidbits, but again, it's inconsequential. It's just procedural stuff. It's bad.
So they were talking, this was going to be release that everybody has been waiting for. Apparently, with the president, vice president, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel in the room, Liz Wheeler and others were told this morning, given this binder, which has absolutely nothing in it, and they were told that by Pam Bondi and the president that she had, because the president asked, ordered for the release of this. Kash Patel delivered it to her desk last week. They were going through it. They expected this to be full of everything that Kash Patel has told me he has seen in the past, but there was nothing. There was nothing left in it. And Liz reports that she was told that the feeling from Pam Bondi and others is that the Southern District of New York, the FBI in the Southern District of New York, actually has the tapes and everything else and will not turn it over to the White House or to Pam Bondi. If that is true, and I understand Liz correctly, and Liz is going to be on my radio program tomorrow and my podcast tomorrow to talk about her experience.
I just have to comment on the use of program. This is something that I have heard. Charles Spadil says program. Alexander Mercouris says program. Glenn Beck apparently says program. My radio program. I said this on my program the other day.
If that indeed is true, then we have a civil war on our hands, an internal civil war. You have a duly elected president, his duly elected confirmed leaders of the FBI and the Department of Justice, and then you have the Southern District of New York FBI and Department of Justice bucking the orders of the president and their direct bosses. There is no other way to describe it. If that is true, there is no other way to describe it than you have a department, or two departments, under the president that are in complete rebellion. And that would have to be, I mean, that's not something you take a Doge scalpel to. That's something you take an axe to, and you cut it out, because that's a cancer.
Based.
And it is a rebellious cancer, and honestly, a civil war against the president and his duly processed appointees. This is not what I expected from Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the president and the vice president, and I take them at this point at their word because I know them. I know how serious each of them are about rooting out this cancer. But this looks really, really horrible for the president, because what others will say is, well, this is just the same old stuff, and names of people that they were friends of were on, and so they had to blame it on somebody else. Well, I just don't believe that of the president and Kash and Pam. I know the passionate response in private about these names and about this list, and how Kash in particular couldn't wait to release this. He is a dog with a bone. He is on a mission, and so is the president, and I believe Pam Bondi is too, on a mission to rat this evil out. If it's true, we're in civil war. The state is at civil war with itself. If it's not true, then we will see this administration not move against the Southern District of New York. If I were President Trump, and I got to give him the benefit of the doubt here, because I think this is, giving him the benefit of the doubt. He is focused on Russia and everything else. But if I were Donald Trump, and no matter what I had planned, if I had an agency in rebellion, I would get on my plane and I would fly to New York and I would personally fire every single person, and I'd put a padlock on that door in Southern District of New York.
Based.
That's what the president, I believe, should do if, I understand what Liz is saying is correct, and if it is indeed true. You cannot tolerate this. We already have 70 lawsuits internally from people who work in the administration, suing the administration, trying to stop the duly elected president who is the CEO of the administration. These people think they don't work for the president of the United States. The president of the United States was elected and given a mandate. He was hired and duly elected, winning the popular vote and the electoral college. To do what? To do exactly what he's doing. Clean this rat's nest of lies and vipers up and fire everybody if he has to.
Yes.
If you don't work for the president and you're in the administration, whom do you work for? Congress? Because the administration is not constitutionally part of Congress. It's part of the administration. That's the executive branch. So if you constitutionally can't work for Congress, I know you don't work for the judiciary, and you say you don't work for the president, who hired you? Who can fire you? You say, well, I'm working for the American people. We don't even know who you are, quite honestly. None of us know who you are. None of us elected you. We elected the president. If all of these things are true, and we should know by tomorrow, President Trump, I beg you, go personally to New York and fire all of these people and set an example. This cannot stand. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the radio.
That was I such an epic boomer tech moment. Just the whole thing. Let me see if anybody commented on it. Hey, Mike Lee reacting to him. I want to see if anybody says anything about him. So are all of his followers a bunch of boomers as well? They're like, oh yeah, I've been there. Accidentally posted the video with my hand over the mic the whole time. Luke Kwiatkowski, did you shoot this on a potato? Yeah, nobody else. Oh, this is like an artifact. I don't know how he possibly managed to wind up with a recording that was that bad. Like the camera's glitching and everything. Did he have to send this through the radiation belt? Oh, man. So Mellon said Kabuki Theater may have been needed to justify total boomer war on our non-friends. Yeah, I mean, the boomers are a pretty good proxy for the normies. And I don't think that people are sufficiently radicalized enough against the FBI and the Justice Department to justify the level of all-out war that the administration is preparing to execute against them. So they need some big pretext for this. Now, if they're doing this intentionally because they sense that and they need to whip this up, then holy shit, we're dealing with a level of competency that is unprecedented. If it's not, if this is them in real time reacting to this, then we have to continue judging them by the progress along each step on the way. But that is the effect of what they're doing. The effect of all of this is not demoralizing people against the Jeffrey Epstein thing. It's pissing people off and making them want blood even more on this. Here is a detail. I don't think I actually knew this part of this. This is from Buck Sexton talking on Sean Ryan. And yes, I'm fully aware of the background of Buck Sexton, whatever. I don't care who the person is saying it. I care the things that are being said. So this is part of the deal that was given to Jeffrey Epstein.
They gave Epstein a plea deal that excused his underage sex trafficking beyond a 6-month, basically home confinement. It was a joke. It was like no sentence at all. And this was federal. But they also gave him that the plea deal covered him and unnamed possible co-conspirators. I asked Andy, I said, Andy, you were in the Southern District of New York for like 23 years. Have you ever even heard of that before? A plea deal that gives immunity beyond the individual to unnamed individuals? He says, no, he told me, he says, that's not a thing. So you got a guy who is trafficking sexually underage girls. You got him nailed, dead to rights. And you give him the biggest sweetheart deal as a prosecutor anybody could ever imagine, to the point where it's not even done in prosecutorial circles. Like, this isn't even attacked. Why would you ever do that? There's no basis for this in law. And remember, there was the prosecutor, the federal prosecutor in Florida at the time. This came up during the Trump administration. He had to go because people were really upset about this when they figured out how the Epstein thing was initially, because there was all this focus on the Epstein trial. They said, wait, what happened back in, whatever it was, the early mid-2000s when this first came up? So there's no explanation of that whatsoever, other than, and you've heard, I'm sure, the quote, we think he belongs to intelligence, and there's been this other stuff out there. And then I'll just add one more factoid to this. And I wish I had the, here's who he was working for, here's who he was targeting. I don't have it yet because I'm just, a guy, and I'm reading what I read in the news, and I'm trying to use the sources that I have.
That is the thing I highly doubt. I highly doubt he doesn't know more, but whatever. It's immaterial to what he's about to say next.
They're very powerful forces trying to stop us from knowing this. Sean, when the FBI actually did I don't remember the year, but it was recent in the last few years, they did a raid on his home. And this was in the FBI, in the logs. I mean, you can actually check this one. They did a raid on his home, and they came upon tapes. Okay? They came upon what we assume would be surveillance footage. Now, we know he had the whole house mic'd up, cameraed up, the whole thing, right? Including the rooms that were specifically meant for, illicit activity. The FBI agent on the commanding, agent running the scene, reached out to Epstein's lawyers and let Epstein lawyers come and decide what was privileged and what was able to be taken. Let them sort it out.
Are you serious?
Yep.
The agent running the scene reached out to Epstein's lawyers and let Epstein's lawyers come and decide what was privileged and what was able to be taken. Heads need to roll for this. Not just fired, prosecuted, imprisoned at the very least. This is one of the largest organized criminal networks in world history. It's absolutely massive, implicates a ton of people. So you don't just undertake this sort of like haphazardly, just march people in and go do a big press conference and read off a list of everyone's names who you're coming after. This is years worth of law enforcement and prosecutorial effort. Shout out to a new boomer in the chat. We love our boomers, don't we, folks? Leah Pasalacqua. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Her Zoomer son introduced me to this. Well, shout out to your Zoomer son. Do you mean that he introduced you to the show, or he introduced you to all the goings on? I'd be very interested to see how you came across the show. I was just looking at the age bracket the other day, and I realized that there's the 55 to 64 and then the 64 and up, and those two categories combined are larger than the under 24 category for the show. The overwhelming majority of it, of the viewership here, is in the 25 to 44 age range. So this is the letter that Pam Bondi sent this afternoon after this whole thing. So that the whole rigmarole happened. They're supposed to meet up again at 3, and then the whole thing sort of kind of turned into less than everyone was expecting. And then Pam Bondi sent this letter, and it was publicly published, to Kash Patel. Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request, and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we'd received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. So this letter is not being written for our sake. This letter is being written for our sake. It's being written for the sake of the public, broadly speaking. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. Isn't that an interesting phrase? Regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action. Within 14 days. Proposed personnel action. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president and our country. So she's laying out publicly what they already know. They already had a conversation about this. So she's formally writing this letter to him to establish both public awareness of all of this and the legal pretext that he now has to comply with what she is asking. I am directing you to conduct an investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. Now, they've already fired a bunch of people. And I wonder, now here's just speculation, just kind of thinking through some of the details here. They fired a bunch of people, and then they're requesting these files, to have these files sent over. Did they make these requests to people who they thought they could trust, and those people actually are decided to make a bad decision, and now they're reacting to that? Did they make these requests to people they knew they couldn't trust to get them to essentially bait them into committing a crime that can be directly investigated right now? These are all speculative. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something like that going on. And then Kash Patel, right after that letter, Kash Patel tweeted this. The FBI is entering a new era, one that will be defined by integrity, accountability, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, and no stone left unturned. And anyone from the prior or current Bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. If there are gaps, we will find them. If records have been hidden, we will uncover them. And we will bring everything we find to the DOJ to be fully assessed and transparently disseminated to the American people as it should be. The oath we take is the Constitution, and under my leadership, that promise will be upheld without compromise. So yeah, I don't know if anything has happened in the last couple hours since I started doing the show, but I'm sure tomorrow we'll have some sort of update with this, and if not, it'll be early next week. One of the funniest things I've ever seen, though, happened today. And this is another thing where I got to tell you guys, you got to stop taking this shit so personally. Step back and observe the objective facts here and tell me this isn't one of the funniest frickin' things you've ever seen. So in the middle of all of this, right in the lead up to, there's that 3 p.m., which would have been 3 p.m. Eastern, so that would be 1:37 here. So this is like an hour and a half before that 3 p.m. deadline. Right in the middle of all this, House Judiciary GOP tweets, breaking, Epstein files released, with a tiny URL link. So as soon as you see the tiny URL, you got to be like, hold on a second. What's going on here? And when you open it, it redirects. It doesn't even automatically redirect. You have to click the redirect to YouTube. So what does it redirect to? The GOP House Judiciary rickrolled people in the middle of all of this. They dropped a link to an Epstein files release and rickrolled people. This is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. Yes, I think it's hilarious. How can you be mad at this? If you're mad at this, you don't have a pulse. You're way too self-absorbed. These people, their job description is going away. They're going to be replaced by increasing layers of artificial intelligence. Congressmen and women, Congress people, Congress theys are not going to be around much longer. They're mostly ornamental already. And they thought that it would be a good idea to tweet out a troll rickrolling people about the Epstein files release. Some intern is going to get canned. And I mean, I really hope this was isn't Chuck Grassley, who's the chair of the House Judiciary? Is this a Chuck Grassley thing? Chair of House Judiciary Committee. Jim Jordan. Okay, I can see Jim Jordan wanting to do that. This is so freaking funny. And if you take this personally and you're like, oh, this is disrespectful. Oh, they're just mocking us. They're just mocking us and covering it all up. No, they're not. These are not impressive people. They thought it would be funny to do an internet meme. They thought, oh, it'd be funny. We'll rickroll them. Everyone will think that's funny. And that in itself is so funny. Watching people who don't know how to use social media, trying to use social media, and catastrophically face planting is hilarious. All right, we got the incoming message. Oinks are in the chat. There he is. Hi, mister. Bah! Are you being a sheep? Bah! What kind of sheep? Bah! You're not a goat, right? You're just a sheep? Why are you a sheep? God likes the sheeps. Because God likes the sheeps? Uh-huh. Yeah. God is anti-goat. You getting ready for bed? From the Alps. Amy goes, why does it smell fruity in here? It smells like I have like a Glade plug-in in here. That's how strong they are.
Daddy, can I just taste it?
No, those are not for you, bub. Those are for adults.
What do they do? What do they taste like?
They taste really spicy. They actually do. All right, you want to say hi to everyone? Hi, oh, look, they're posting sheep in the chat. Uncle Mitch is in the chat, and he says, "What's up, kiddo?" You want to say hi to Uncle Mitch?
Hi, Uncle
Mitch. Yes, my son wants an Alp. All right, big guy. It's good to see you.
Posting wood eaters in the chat.
Posting wood eaters? Because it's a long story. I'll tell you the story someday about the beavers, about the wood eaters. I love you, mister.
Are they actually called wood eaters?
Yeah, you used to call them stick eaters, but they're actually called wood eaters. All right, say bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Actually, not time to say goodbye.
Oh, it's actually not time to say goodbye? Oh, someone posted dragons. Are you still a dragon? What are you now?
Sheep.
You're a sheep. Oh, okay. He just watched How to Train a Dragon last week, and he was running around and telling us that he was toothless. He's just watching the chat go by. All right, big guy. Daddy's got to get back to his show.
Good night, Daddy.
Please don't throw that at her. Please hand it to me. Please hand it to me in my hand. Thank you, dude. I love you. Can you give me a smooch? All right, I'll see you later, big guy. I don't care if he takes it. All right. Let us get back to this. So the first thing I've got here, I got a handful of little one-off stories of it's just more libs getting owned. Related to the last one, actually. So this is from Douglas Mackey, tweeted this out. Breaking, court nukes left-wing attorneys for judge shopping. Judge Lyles C. Burke issued a 230-page opinion that sanctioned 3 attorneys and refers one of the attorneys for potential prosecution to the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Alabama. The progressive attorneys in Alabama tried to steer a transgender case to a Carter appointee judge. What are we doing here, man? Carter appointees? So the progressive attorneys in Alabama tried to steer a transgender case to a Carter appointee judge using underhanded and surreptitious methods. And this is... Oh, go away. Ad block. This case requires the court to consider a malignant practice that threatens the orderly administration of justice. Judge shopping. The lead attorneys in this case, a high-profile challenge to Alabama state law, tried to avoid their assigned judge by voluntarily dismissing one case and filing a new with different plaintiffs in a neighboring federal district court. This was not just a strategic litigation decision, it was a calculated effort to subvert the rule of law. The case began in April 2022 when 2 teams of attorneys from some of the nation's leading law firms and advocacy groups sued the state of Alabama to block enforcement of a new felony healthcare ban on medical treatments for transgender minors. The attorneys had labored over these cases for nearly 2 years in advance so they could sue the state as soon as the proposed ban became law. And when the governor signed the legislation on April 8, 2022, they sued immediately. The first case, Lidinsky v. Ivey, was filed that afternoon. The second, Walker v. Marshall, was filed the following Monday. Both teams felt immense pressure to secure an injunction before the law's May 8 effective date. But within a week, both teams abandoned their cases. Walker and Lidinsky were reassigned to this court on the afternoon of April 15, and less than 2 hours later, each team had voluntarily dismissed its case under Rule 41A1AI. By their own admission, these attorneys were trying to game the system. One team abandoned the litigation altogether, while the other dropped everything, regrouped, mustered new plaintiffs, and filed suit in another federal district court for the express purpose of manipulating the court's random case assignment procedures to avoid the risk of an unfavorable judgment from this court. But the plaintiffs' filings in Walker and Lidinsky sparked concern among the federal bench that counsel had tried either to manipulate or circumvent the random case assignment procedures for the northern and middle districts of Alabama. In May of 2022, a 3-judge panel consisting of the chief judges for the northern, middle, and southern districts of Alabama, or their designees, was convened to investigate their conduct. After 6 months developing a substantial evidentiary record and 11 months deliberating, the panel found that 11 lead attorneys from Walker and Lidinsky, the respondents, had committed the misconduct by judge shopping. On October 3, 2023, the panel published its findings in a 53-page final report of inquiry, which it referred to this court for further proceedings. Now, for the reasons discussed below, the court publicly reprimands attorneys Melody Egan and Jeffrey Doss for their intentional bad faith attempts to manipulate the random case assignment procedures for the Northern and Middle District of Alabama, disqualifies them from further participation in this case, and refers the matter of their professional misconduct to the Alabama State Bar. The court declines to exercise its discretion to suspend Egan and Doss from practice in the Middle District of Alabama. Moreover, the court publicly reprimands Carl Charles for his repeated, intentional, bad faith misrepresentations of key facts to the 3-judge panel about his call to Judge Thompson's chambers, imposes monetary sanctions in the amount of $5,000, and refers this matter to the United States Attorney for the Middle District of Alabama and Charles's licensing bar organizations. And I just want to say, to make referring attorneys for prosecution great again. It's very interesting that this news drops right at this time. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's not. I don't know. Slutty Milk says that judge's got to be the one 300-year-old guy that Doge found collecting Social Security. Okay, so next one. Leading report said, breaking, 5 members of the Democratic Party in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Philadelphia have been criminally charged with numerous counts of voter fraud at both the state and federal levels regarding mail-in ballots. So we're getting prosecutions. We're getting voter fraud prosecutions. Oren McIntyre says the difference between a right-wing conspiracy theory and a mainstream media headline is about 6 months. And shout out to Peter Newski for sharing this video. Says the Bridgeport, Connecticut footage is nuts. This video was taken October of 2023. This is ballot stuffing in Bridgeport.
Wanda Jeter Padalecki had nothing to say as she arrived at Bridgeport Superior Court.
Raise your right hand.
And little to say on the witness stand as lawyers showed her 20 minutes of new surveillance video allegedly showing Jeter and other Joe Ganim supporters stuffing absentee ballot boxes. In one clip, Jeter appears to high-five someone just after a drop.
Did you ever deposit an absentee ballot, a completed absentee ballot that was not yours in a city drop box?
Dozens of times, Jeter's lawyer asserted a Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. Other new videos allegedly show city council candidate Anita Martinez making multiple ballot drops.
Is that you, Ms. Martinez?
She also pled the Fifth. Ganim's opponent, John Gomes, says the videos prove the election was stolen.
When I knock on those doors and people tell me their vote don't count, they exemplify that.
But as bad as the videos look, lawyers for the city say it's not enough to toss out a whole primary.
It involves, I believe, only 9 people. So this great conspiracy that we've all been hearing about isn't there.
Gomes' attorney says it's about more than a handful of videos.
The numbers of people that we see voting at the drop boxes and the number of envelopes without a stamp and without a postmark are not close.
So the argument here, the city defense attorney has argued that election results cannot be tossed because the accusation only involves 9 bad actors. So it was only 9 people that were stuffing the ballot boxes. That's not that many people. I mean, how many ballots in a city could 9 people stuff into ballot boxes, going there multiple times, multiple trips with handfuls and handfuls of them, stuffing them in there? It's only 9 people doing it. So one of the best parts of this story, though, is this. Bridgeport Dem, arrested on election charges, says he was just, quote, following the orders of the Democratic Party. Last week, 5 members of the Democrat Party in Connecticut were arrested on a variety of election charges, including Wanda, the ballot stuffer, Pataki, along with Bridgeport City Council members Alfredo Castillo, Maria Pereira, and Jasmarie Melendez, and campaign staffer Margaret Joyce. In a statement Friday afternoon, Chief State's Attorney Patrick J. Griffin said the charges were connected to, quote, the misuse of absentee ballots during Bridgeport Mayor Joseph Ganim's campaign for re-election in 2023. In response to his arrest, according to Only in Bridgeport, Castillo said he was, quote, pissed off and frustrated that he had to, quote, go through this because he had been told Ganim would lose, quote, if we don't get out the vote. Castillo then specifically accused Governor Ned Lamont, Senator Rich Danang Dick Blumenthal, Senator Chris Murphy, and Congressman Jim Himes of directly benefiting off the illegal actions which resulted in increased turnout in Bridgeport. So he's directly accusing the governor, Dick Blumenthal, Chris Murphy, and Congressman Jim Himes of directly benefiting off of it. He further claimed that he was innocent and just, quote, following the orders of the Democratic Party. Quote, this is what they tell us to do, get out the vote. Then we get criminalized, Castillo said. They said get out the vote. So I was just getting out the vote. That's what they told me to do. Our job is to get out the vote. We're loyal. Always the foot soldiers get whacked and then everyone benefits. Ganim, Lamont, Blumenthal, Murphy, Himes. Then it's thank you, we'll see you in 4 years. Bridgeport election results did show a higher percentage of Democrat votes than the state average for 2024, with around 75% of votes going to Murphy and Himes in Bridgeport, as compared to around 60% of those candidates at the state level. So 75% of votes went to them versus 60% for those candidates at the state level. What exactly does that mean? So they're saying at the state level, United States Senator. I'm trying to figure out exactly what they're implying by that. State average 2024, so 75% went for them in Bridgeport as opposed to 60%. So like the whole state, I see what it's saying. It's saying the whole state voted, Like 60% of the state voted for them, but in Bridgeport, 75% of people went to them. Castillo is also upset with that his loyalty to the party is not being recognized, and he has to foot the bill for his own attorneys. He thinks the party should be paying for attorneys to represent the foot soldiers. This is glorious. Just turning on each other. Why aren't you paying for my lawyers? You told me to get out the vote. I committed voter fraud. Now I'm getting arrested. You should be defending me. You should be recognizing my loyalty to the party. I broke the law for you. So Castillo was charged with 5 counts of misrepresenting eligibility requirements for voting by absentee ballot in violation of these statutes, 5 counts of being present when an absentee ballot applicant executes an absentee ballot, and then 8 counts of possession of ballots and envelopes restricted. 42 counts, 22 counts, 17 counts, 9 counts, 20 counts, 4 counts, 5 counts. I wanted to see if there was any really big numbers. 6 counts, 4 counts. And despite his arrest, Castillo is still planning to run for re-election next year. I mean, I gotta admire these people's dedication to the hustle, man. And frankly, I think he's probably being entirely sincere. He's like, I mean, yeah, what I did was illegal, but they told me to do it. The Democrat Party told me to do it, and I'm loyal to the party. Like, I have to do it. I was instructed to. Why should I be held responsible for doing that? They should be defending me for breaking the law. That's how much I care about them. That's how loyal I am. I'll break the law for them. Hermetic Hegemony with $5 says pushing for originals exposes fixers and enablers, non-expendables. Discover the other projects they worked on. Found a ring. Okay, now find the finger. Yes. And then here is some... I got some Doge stuff now. So Wall Street Apes posted this. There's a video from this woman here, but he wrote out all the details of it, so I'll get through it faster than she would, and I won't make you guys listen to a woman talk. Why would Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge want to know if federal workers are working? Shocking. Internal sensitive data from inside the Department of Veterans Affairs building portfolio. So the VA central office is 810 Vermont Avenue. It's a 618,000 square foot building. It has 2,483 seats, meaning that's how many staff they can fit. The monthly rent is $27.2 million. Their average logins is 387 people. So people logging in every month to work. 387 people a month are logging in out of 2,483, and they're paying $27.2 million a month for rent. The building is sitting at 16% occupancy rate. So we're paying $27.2 million a month for a building with a 16% occupancy rate. And then here's 6 more buildings. This is all within the VA. 266,000 square feet. $14 million a month in rent. 10% occupancy rate. 18,000 G Street. 207,000 square feet. 11% occupancy rate. $11.3 million a month. 48,000 square feet. 20% occupancy rate. $2.4 million a month in rent. 37,000 square feet. 156 seats, no login data. This building lease is being terminated. $1.7 million a month in rent. 175,000 square feet. 10% occupancy rate. $12.7 million a month in rent. And then 18,000 square feet. 9% occupancy rate. $1.1 million a month in rent. This is all from the Department of Veterans Affairs building portfolio. It's kind of... your eyes kind of start to glaze over a little bit after seeing all the numbers. You're just like, oh yeah, 27 million and what were these? 14 million and 11 million and 2 million but after you start getting so many of these, this actually turns into a lot of money. And imagine being able to carve just a tiny little fraction off of that for our guys. The way our entire generation has been scratching and clawing through on a shoestring. With these millions and millions and millions and billions and billions and billions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars just being just run around all over money laundering, crime networks. It's just, it's absolutely insane. Yeah, everyone likes to hate on the young ones, millennials, Zoomers. It's fashionable to talk about how good we had it, especially the boomers. The older ones, oh, we had it so good back then, or no, actually, it's we had to work so hard for everything that we got, and you guys have it so good now. You know, you look at all the great things that you have in life, and yeah, it turns out that we've been carrying a freaking massive, what's the millstone around our necks. We are dragging the entire global economy up a hill on our backs. It's remarkable that as a generation, we've been able to keep our heads above water. Looking at the sheer volume of insane corruption and graft and fraud and waste and abuse, and for years upon years upon years. How many of those people who like to look down their nose at the younger ones for just being so lazy and you know, how much could it cost? It's what is it? A banana or something? It's a banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10? All of this insane money has just been thrown at all of these things. And the pre-existing generations, like they were lined up perfectly to just... And then yeah, it's hard to get by now. It's really hard. If you're a millennial, even some of the latter end of Gen X, but especially the millennials and then the Zoomers, just the whole world is fake. The entire economy is fake. So many people are just living on the backs of the younger generations through these complex networks of money laundering. Just slash. Just keep slashing. I don't care who it is. I do not give one single solitary fuck who's doing the slashing. Just keep doing it. So I got a few tweets here from Cremu. Today's big news is another Doge development. This was, yesterday. This one centers on modernizing how payments occur so that they're centralized, individually justified, and accessible to the public. If this works, there'll be clear, transparent accounting of everything the government pays for. This is a presidential action called Implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Cost Efficiency Initiative. This order starts off big. The first thing it orders is creating a centralized system for logging payments used by agencies. Agencies already record this information, but this adds the need to consistently justify payments and to put all this together in an organized way. So it says each agency head shall, with assistance as required from the agency's Doge team lead, build a centralized technological system within the agency to seamlessly record every payment issued by the agency pursuant to each of the agency's covered contracts and grants, along with a brief written justification for each payment submitted by the agency employee who approved the payment. This system shall include a mechanism for the agency head to pause and rapidly review any payment for which the approving employee has not submitted a brief written justification within the technological system. Currently, payment records are recorded in very disparate formats and inconsistently. Some payments need to have justification supplied already, and yet they're basically never justified. People often just do not follow the rules. This failure to have a centralized, consistently formatted payment record leads to improper payments. Improper payments cost the government hundreds of billions of dollars each year. In this small subset of programs, the GAO found some $200 billion worth. We covered this a few weeks ago. The GAO said there was something like $200 billion worth of improper payments made in, I think it was last calendar year alone. That's a lot of money, and while only some of it is explained by out-and-out fraud, it's primarily the result of incompetence. Waste that definitely shouldn't be there can be eliminated, and that, much like fraud, no one stands up for. Some of the examples I've seen for this will be like agencies that will have enterprise-level software subscriptions for the same service, for different competitors of the same service, and they'll have 15,000 licenses or something, and they're all unused. So they're paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year for all these different SaaS products or database software or whatever it is, and just not using it. They're paying for the licenses, never use them. Employees never come into the office. They pay all the real estate costs to have a building that is, in some cases, quite literally occupied by homeless people. And this money is just getting flushed. So it's not even necessarily directly related to any sort of corruption, but it also makes you wonder just how many of those software companies are not worth anywhere near what they look like they are, because think about how much, like 15,000 profiles of the enterprise level software or licenses for software like that, what that would do for one of those companies coming from the federal government that just rebills and rebills and rebills and rebills and nobody ever uses it. I sure like that for my software company. Now, the next section of this order is juicy. With that centralized system in place, agencies will now, 1, write out a justification for payments, and 2, make that justification public when possible. Now you, the taxpayer, will know exactly why almost every dime got spent. Not only do the government payments for contracts and grants need to be publicly justified now, but also employee expenses need to be justified. For example, if a government employee travels on the government's dime, they'll have to justify and publicly report on that. Government employees are going to absolutely hate the hell out of this. Tough cookies. Go get a job in the private sector. The order also includes a lot of things that will be happening in the next 30 days, specifically a review of all existing contracts and grants, a temporary freeze on new contracts and grants, a freeze on agency credit cards, and a review of agency property leases. These will result in reviews of employee purchases and guidelines for and other leases. But the big... Uh-oh. The stream go down? It just told me the connection lost. All right, there's F's in the chat, so it must have gone down. Let's see. It's back. Okay, good. I don't know what caused that. Okay, so it says that these will result in reviews of employee purchases and guidelines for subsequent card usage, the implementation of new rules for contracting and grant issuance, and the cancellation of unnecessary office space and other leases. But the big thing has to do with Doge team leads. Agency heads will work with them to decide how new contracts and grants are to be signed, modified, and so on, with team leads passing up this information to the Doge administrator on a monthly basis for all agencies. In other words, this centralizes the government further. Doge is, as I've consistently noted, a project to totally remake the federal government. The executive branch is not up to date technologically, nor is its current structure equipped to handle modern technology transparency values, or, shortly and critically, AGI/ASI. In everything Doge does, you will see again and again that it is changing that. Everything Doge does is intended to streamline the government in a way that lets it adopt new technologies and respond flexibly to the commands of the president and the demands of new technology. One way to portray Doge's mission is shortening the time between command and execution in the federal bureaucracy. Or, put differently, to make the government into the president's machine. The vision here is tremendous, and this only scratches the surface of what will be possible. With Doge, what people see as the surface level goals: spotlighting and eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, cutting down staff and staffing requirements, and spearheading deregulation. Those are part and parcel to the goal of ending the administrative state. If you want to read the order, the link is here. As an aside, this also forces people to expose their political graft. Giving out contracts to friends? Much likelier to be exposed with these changes. So as usual, the link to all of these that I'm reading, if you want to go read the document itself or interact with the thread or whatever, King Pilled Substack is the place to go, kingpill.substack.com. And then there's this. So there's a number of things. If you go to whitehouse.gov, it has a list of, let me see, what are the specific, there's executive actions, there's articles, there's remarks. This is an article that was produced by the White House. Illegal immigrant killers rapists aren't scholars. They're criminals. The White House is doing the scholars meme, you guys. Do you understand what this means? The White House is saying they aren't scholars. And a strong contender for dumbest statement of the year, disgraced filmmaker Michael Moore lamented illegal immigrant criminals being apprehended because they might have, quote, discovered the cure for cancer or, quote, stopped that asteroid. The only thing more foolish than that statement are the politicians who oppose the deportations. These are the types of cold-blooded criminals he's talking about. A Portuguese national convicted of sexual exploitation of a minor, child pornography apprehended in Philadelphia. A Guatemalan national charged with an armed home invasion, kidnapping, intimidation, and assault with a dangerous weapon, apprehended in Rhode Island. A Haitian national charged with 3 murders, apprehended in North Carolina. A Salvadoran national and MS-13 gang member convicted of aggravated assault with bodily injury and DWI, apprehended in Houston. And it goes on and on and on and on. I'm not going to read all of them. From White House Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai, of course, where's my train sound? Quote, Michael Moore is free to visit the quantum computing and particle physics labs that MS-13, TDA, and the cartels are now going to have set up back home in El Salvador, Venezuela, and Mexico. The Trump administration will remain focused on putting her own citizens first by mass deporting illegal migrant rapists, murderers, and other criminals out of American communities. The White House communications staff is publicly memeing on Michael Moore. And Cremieux said, if you're wondering why the White House website now has a section where they respond to people like Michael Moore, then perhaps you haven't heard of the comms director. Tim Walz tweeted, Elon Musk is a terrible president. And Stephen Chung, our Mongol warlord, says Tim Walz is a cuck. If you're not following Stephen Chung, what are you doing, man? He goes hard. You know, actually, let's see if he's dropped any bangers here in the last little bit since I looked last. Stephen Chung, 47. Yep, here we go. 7 hours ago. He says a relic of the past found in a random cabinet in the White House. Apparently, Jen Psaki was so important, she had personalized note cards made to remind people how important she was. And Carla Blue-Checked Marinucci says, maybe Trump's spokesman can explain to the public why the Tate brothers are free instead of wasting time on this BS. And he said, hey, dummy, I know you were fired from your reporting job because you're crummy at your job. But since you're probably panhandling and not tracking the news, this was addressed in the Oval Office presser. Hey, told Jen Psaki you should have left your shit laying around. Clean up after yourself. What an absolute madman. I know that people have probably... Hold on just a second here. Let me keep my tabs in order here. I know there's some people who have already seen this guy, but if you haven't, let me just show you a picture of him real quick. One of my favorite members of the administration. He's been a close Trump loyalist for a long time, and he gives exactly 0 shits. Here you go. Oh, yeah. Here he is. Look at the man. Yeah, baby. Yeah, Stephen Chung needs a dark MAGA edit. Yeah. This is what I voted for. Oh, look at him. Wearing the knee-high, knee-length coat. Oh, he was busting out of those shoes. Look at his shoes are holding on for dear life. Our Mongolian. Look at him. White House Communications Director, man, could not have picked a better person for the job. Just incredible. Who wants to mess around with this guy? He's going to body you. He's got the fast thumbs. Look at my Mongolian over there. Henchman maxing. You guys are hilarious. Oh, here's another one from Commune. The Biden administration harassed police and fire departments for asking their recruits to have a bare minimum level of literacy, numeracy, and physical aptitude. Today, the DOJ has dismissed all of those cases with a clear message. Competence is legal again. These are the ones dismissed here. United States versus City of Durham, North Carolina. The Biden DOJ alleged discrimination because entry-level firefighter applicants were required to pass a written exam. The city was required to provide compensation and preferential hiring to applicants who were not hired. United States versus Maryland State Police. The Biden DOJ alleged discrimination because applicants were required to pass a written exam and basic physical exam. The agency was required to provide compensation and retroactive seniority to applicants who were not hired. United States versus Cobb County, Georgia. The Biden DOJ alleged discrimination because firefighter applicants were required to complete a written exam and credit check. The county was required to provide compensation and preferential hiring to applicants who were not hired. And then United States versus City of South Bend, Indiana. The Biden DOJ alleged discrimination because police applicants were required to pass a written exam and basic physical exam. This is what the Biden DOJ was up to. The thread continues. If you would like to understand the test questions that caused the Biden admin to go after these departments for disparate impact reasons, I've written some threads. Here are questions for U.S. versus Maryland State Police. On Tuesday, Officer Jones worked the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift. At 10:55 p.m., he was called to the scene of an accident where he remained until 1:30 a.m. How long past his regular shift did Officer Jones work? This question was considered discriminatory. United States versus City of Durham and Cobb County. A firefighter determines that 350 feet of hose is needed to reach a particular building. If the hoses are 60 feet in length, what is the minimum number of lengths of hose needed? Officer Milton visits local area businesses as part of a theft prevention program. If Officer Milton visits 3 area businesses every week, except for his 3-week vacation, how many groups does he visit in 1 year? These are like questions for, I don't know, a 10-year-old, maybe? Clearly, the DOJ was suing critical service providers for asking their recruits to be barely literate, barely numerate, and barely capable of firing a gun or running a short distance. That stance is insane. We should demand so much more for these people, and now we can. How could you possibly justify to yourself, as a rational human being, that it is good to sue critical service providers for asking your recruits, for asking firefighters to be barely literate, barely numerate, and barely capable of firing a gun or running a short distance? The only reason you would possibly do this is if you are actively trying to get people killed. It's difficult to come up with like a legal precedent for something like this. Oh, and then this one here. Almost finished with this little segment, and then we're gonna get into some. we're gonna look at 47 and 48 mogging a limey. Statement on Trump White House victory against the Associated Press. I just loved the title that they gave this. So this is from the category of briefings and statements. Statement on the Trump White House victory against the Associated Press. Associated Press, you have been mogged. As we've said from the beginning, asking the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office and aboard Air Force One is a privilege granted to journalists, not a legal right. We stand by our decision to hold the fake news accountable for their lies, and President Trump will continue to grant an unprecedented level of access to the press. This is the most transparent administration in history. This is an official statement from the White House. I love this timeline. I saw a statistic that it showed I think it was questions answered by the press in the first month of an administration. And it was Biden, Obama, Trump the first time around, and it might have had Bush too. And they were all in the 100 to 200 questions answered from the press in the first month. And this administration for Trump, it was like 1,100. Elon has... Oh, I forgot I had this in here. So here's another... I know you guys will like this. We got another Data Republican video. Now she's being... They're stepping up the level of her interviews. So I'll just play the video here first, and then the talk about the context.
Big picture, with all the databases you're looking at and taxpayer money, how much do you think is being wasted or stolen?
If I had to guess, I would say it's over 100 billion. But what's more important is what they're doing with that money.
The mythical X account Data Republican, shared over and over again by Elon Musk himself, is a real person, a former programmer, now full-time calling out government waste like exposing USAID. How did you get the attention of Elon Musk?
Honestly, I don't know. You'll have to ask him, but I'm grateful. One day, I tweeted what everybody should... I just tweeted what I found, and then he tweeted everyone should follow the Data Republican. My jaw dropped to the floor, and I thought, what, is this real life? But I guess tech people find tech people. I want to be clear. I don't communicate directly with Elon. He found me and supports my work. But I have communicated with some people that are involved with Doge just on the side. And I don't want to say much more about that, but I have a working relationship.
She goes by Data and uses AI tools to search public databases for waste and fraud. She's been to DC to meet with Elon Musk's Doge team and publishes all her findings on X and her website. Charity funding, federal grants, non-governmental organizations funded by taxpayers. It's all there. What do you say to people who think that this data, these databases, these numbers have been out there for a long time, that they've been public for a long time, and that it's sort of like a publicity stunt that they're getting all this attention now?
That's just an ignorant assumption. Data does not equal transparency. I am a database expert, a database scientist. I'm a kernel engineer, and the numbers do not lie. What I did was I added the index to the book so that people can actually find the awards, what they're looking for. And you have to understand, without AI, this would not be possible because the book is so large, nobody can sit down and read the entire thing.
Her next project could be even bigger, investigating and exposing what she believes are corrupt politicians and judges. She posted this weekend, still working on the People Connection mega project. This will be my first truly financially high-cost initiative, so I need to get it just right.
So my project right now is to work on analyzing connections and relationships between people in the government. Because if you research people long enough, you start to notice that they're all working together. They're all married. They're all in-laws. They know each other. They all sit on the same board for many years. And that's my project, to map those relationships and put it on my website.
She says Democrats and Republicans are both to blame.
I cannot tell you enough how much both are involved. It is everywhere. Now we even have members of Congress. So we have sitting members of Congress that actually sit on the NGOs right now. They vote in Congress for money for themselves, and they sit on the same NGOs that they're voting to get money. It is a huge conflict of interest, and it's buried very deep. The numbers don't lie. This is not a partisan issue, and if the American people understood completely what we're finding, there would be outrage across the board.
Are you ever scared? Because exposing things like that, the ways people are making big money secretly within our government, seems like it could put you at risk.
Oh yes, we had to change the way we live entirely, quickly. But sometimes God calls you for a mission, and you must answer that call.
So I had a story here. I realized I must have dropped it off because I had to knock a few off to make it a little less long. And it was about Sheldon Whitehouse, who his wife is she has some NGO related to like ocean environmental conservation or whatever, I don't remember. And it has received millions of dollars directly from grant funding that was a consequence of his legislation that he pushed. So he went and he pushed legislation through that provided grant funding to his wife's NGO. Now I'm going to say, in principle, I don't have a problem with this. I just think that it should be our guys that are benefiting from this sort of thing, and not gay, green new scam NGOs for terrible people. I want preferential treatment for our guys and our institutions. But this whole project that she's putting together now is going to become, I think, quite explosive. Because now she's mapping personal relationships between people. And I've seen some of the stuff she's doing with Jeffrey Epstein already. She's got like Jeffrey Epstein in the middle and all the different connections of everybody. She's doing the Charlie from It's Always Sunny thing. But now that she's beginning to map relationships with members of Congress and different NGOs, and you start putting all this stuff together and presenting it out there, privacy is... I've said for a long time that you shouldn't act as if you have privacy. You should assume that every single thing you do or say is going to be released publicly. Privacy just doesn't exist anymore. Being able to maintain privacy becomes a function of power. And so part of there's kind of a trade-off here. If you want to have a surveillance state, if you want to make everything public, like say you want to have a blockchain and everything is publicly available on that blockchain, well, you're not going to get privacy yourself. And there's like a bargain here that can be made, where through Doge and through this sort of thing that Data Republican's working on, we're going to make all the government operations possible private or public. They're going to be completely public. Nobody's going to have any privacy. Everything's going to be completely out in the open. I think this is a trajectory we're on socially. It's just inevitable that, like, you can try to make yourself private. It kind of ties into the thing I was talking about yesterday, the Luddite thing. Like, you can really, really commit to the bit if you want, if that's something you value. But you should recognize that in general, we're going to have robot cars driving around. We're going to have robots going around that are you're going to have drones, flying robots, walking robots, rolling robots that are all going to be collecting data constantly, all the time, all around them. They can recreate the audio from a bag of chips that was laying on a table in a room while you were talking. They can like reverse engineer the vibrations on it and reproduce the audio. They can use Wi-Fi to see through walls. I mean, privacy doesn't exist. The problem is that people like the entire NGO intelligence community, deep state apparatus, they've all taken advantage of the privacy that they had. That privacy is going to go away. Things are going to be dragged out into the open. And so I think we need to be cultivating ourselves, preparing to live in a world where we embrace everything just being out in the open. Because that may be the cost of getting that from the governing authorities. We're going to be completely public. You have to be completely public as well. If you want to be private, if you want privacy, then you're going to have to let us have privacy. So which is it? If you want privacy, if you want all of the stuff we do to be public and all the stuff you do to be private, no, it's not going to happen. But with this thing with Congress, this video, Elon says it might make sense to increase compensation for Congress and senior government employees to reduce the forcing function for corruption, as the latter might be as much as 1,000 times more expensive to the public. Which I would fully endorse this. Cremu says this is very true. To have a smaller, more effective government, there has to be more talent among the bureaucrats. And for that to happen, the wages paid to government employees will have to rise. Singapore provides a good model. Singapore's public officials are among the highest paid in the world to prevent corruption and encourage talented people to pursue government posts. The prime minister has a salary of 2.2 million or 1.65 million US, and ministers are benchmarked to about 830,000 US. And I have no problem with this. Paying the elected officials more, like it's silly, it's preposterous that we're like, oh yeah, the president's going to have a salary of 250 grand or whatever. It's just silly. It's ludicrous. Of course, he's not going to live on a salary of 250 grand. You can't be like, oh, it's really hard here as a middle-class person, and also the elected officials should be paid approximately a middle-class salary. A lot of them are going to go away altogether. They're going to get automated away. But in the meantime, as long as they're there, yeah, pay them more. Make them a little bit less hard to buy off, especially as they're coming up. All right, let's see Trump and 48 here, 47 and 48, mogging a limey. Look at the difference in body language and demeanor displayed by Donald Trump and Mr. Keir Starmer. Actually, let me leave it like this because it's bigger. Watch the way that they interact here.
Ready, close. Ready, shut.
Yes, we can. We can. We will. Thank you.
He just completely disarms him immediately. Look at the little shove that he gives him. Right?
Ready, close.
Right there. So he gave him the normal handshake, but he put his hand on his shoulder and he kind of pushed him back and forth a little, sort of knocked him off balance. And then he like says something to him about, I think he says something to him about his suit or his cuffs or something like that, and gets him all like sort of nervous and like fiddling with stuff and kind of looking around awkwardly. And you could tell at the end here that Starmer's like, can we go inside? Can we stop doing this? I feel very uncomfortable right now.
Yes, we can. We can. We will. Thank you.
Please, let's go in. Let's go in. And then he proceeded to mog him a couple of more times. One was in this back and forth with the press asking him questions.
Between our two countries. That is why this is the greatest alliance for prosperity and security I think the world has ever seen. Whenever necessary, we absolutely backed each other up, and that's at the core.
Could you take on Russia by yourselves?
Well,
Could you take on Russia by yourselves? Oh, you can't? Oh, that's too bad. All right, next question. Just completely dragging him around the room. Even the, I don't know what network this is, but it's a bunch of Brits, and they're even laughing at him.
Introduce a clip now that I've only just become aware of. I'm seeing this for the first time. Of maybe this articulates the power
this is GB News.
Dynamic between Trump and Starmer. Let's play it.
you mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't
That's
discuss
enough.
Canada.
Thank you.
Introduce a clip now.
Right in the middle while he's talking. All right, that's enough. Move on. No question whatsoever who the big dick in the room is. And then this was the other clip that was going around. JD Vance. This is very much like this is some old fashioned stuff. These guys sitting here smiling at each other, just like throwing blows, trying to stick the knife in each other's ribs.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies. But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
We discussed all this stuff.
The absolute audacity of the little weasel. You could see Vance giving him the "we're gonna fucking kill you" face. Yes, free speech. I'm sure you're very proud of your history of free speech there. So Starmer's coming over here to. I got to give another shout out to Tom Luongo. If you're not paying attention to what Tom Luongo and Alex Craner are working on right now, the stuff that they've been coming up with and discussing. Just, what are you doing? What are you doing? Go subscribe to Tom Luongo's Patreon. Set yourself up a Boolean search on YouTube and just search for any time a Tom Luongo interview drops with anyone, because he's going through all this stuff extensively at length, and they have been bang on with, I don't know, all of their predictions so far. One of the recent conversations they just had, they were talking about this is something that had dropped a while back that people kind of talked about and then stopped paying attention to. That I think it was in January that Starmer and Zelensky met together and signed a 100-year land lease deal or some sort of insane partnership, basically backing him for 100 years. And what Alex Craner is suggesting is that as part of that, the Brits got the access to the so-called rare earth minerals that are there. And so Trump angling for them, the way he has been, is a direct finger in the eye to Starmer in the UK. This is while they're negotiating with Russia, and so then Russia coming in and saying, hey, look at this, we have rare earth minerals. We're very happy to strike a deal with the U.S. to give them our rare earth minerals. Totally takes the wind out of the sails for Zelensky with the little deal that he's trying to sign. Meanwhile, another proxy arm of the City of London Davos types, Chrystia Freeland. Listen to this. Listen to this silly woman.
The U.S. is turning predator. And so what Canada needs to do is work closely with our democratic allies, our military allies. I've been foreign minister. I know how to do that. That's why I would start with our Nordic partners, specifically Denmark, which is also being threatened, and our European NATO allies. I would be sure that France and Britain were there, who possess nuclear weapons. And I would be working urgently with those partners to build a closer security relationship that guarantees our security in a time when the United States can be a threat.
Do you want to get invaded? Because that's how you get invaded. She's quite literally discussing creating a nuclear alliance with other Anglo countries against the United States. Maybe Trump's not going to have to pull out of NATO. Maybe all the other NATO countries are going to pull out and just be left with the United States. All right. This is pathologically, certifiably insane rhetoric coming out of her. I suspect that can you even take this woman seriously? Can you take any of these people seriously anymore? But if you want to see the United States is very happy to work out a fantastic negotiation, a fantastic deal to incorporate aspects of Canada in the United States. The Canadians will love it. They'll benefit tremendously from it. Some of them won't. Some of them will not want to be not want to join the party just yet. But if you want to be forcibly invaded and occupied, you start talking about putting together a nuclear alliance with other Anglo countries, specifically targeted at the U.S. That's a real good way to just get straight up occupied and purged. These people are insane. They're absolutely insane. Hopefully they're treated as insane people. Now, I've got a couple of rather long clips here to round us off. And this is, so all these last stories here are kind of connected. You've got Starmer, who's running his games from the UK. You've got the Ukraine and Russia relationship. You've got Canada as effectively a proxy of the European powers. And at least their political rhetoric coming from goofballs like Freeland. And then you've got what's happening in Romania right now. So I was going to talk about this yesterday, had to push it off till later. Călin Georgescu, who is the the presumptive next president, has been arrested very conveniently. And the EU is gloating about how they're protecting their democracy. But there's a lot more to this story. This Romanian story, and I've got first a video here from Mike Benz. I was trying to figure out which order to do these in. One of these is from Mike Benz. One of them is from Alex Jones. And there's so many moving parts to all of this, but we're going to be hearing more and more about Romania, I think, going forward. And things may get rather explosive. So let's start with, this is why the Romanian president was arrested and how this ties into stamping out Trumpism or populism. Mike Benz explains how Pakistan is how weapons and arms are transferred to Romania over an air bridge to be used to supply Ukraine. And yes, I know a lot of people just discuss their favorite word they just learned is limited hangout. They're very happy, very excited to use it. And they think Mike Benz is a limited hangout. I think it very possibly is a limited hangout. I think he very possibly is a advanced recon intel guy for what you might broadly call our side. I think that's more likely. And I think that his whole thing, I can't remember if I said this on this show or if it was in the King Pill Discord chatting with people, but I think his interview with Tucker where it looked like he was like trying to defend USAID, a lot of people read that as here's Benz trying to stop something or trying to change something. And I read that as Benz trying to signal that this was what was going to happen, and here's why it's going to happen, whether you like it or not. Basically signaling the intent of the administration. That's how I read it. That's how I heard it. But anyway, so again, I very, very fully aware of Mike Benz and his background and the fact that he's very clearly a rather and oh, for crying out loud. Did it just go down again? Maybe it didn't. Looks like it's still going. Hopefully it's still going. Yes, I'm very well aware of all the background on Mike Benz. You don't have to come. You don't at me, bro. I'm very interested in what he has to say here.
In the war against Russia right now, NATO believes we need to build the single largest military base in all of NATO on the Black Sea coast of Romania that points straight out in a line at Crimea and move. This base that's under construction is 100% bigger than the biggest current Air Force NATO base in Europe. See, there's an election going on in Romania right now. You may have heard about this. The canceled election in Romania with the Georgescu, this right-wing populist figure who has pledged neutrality in the war. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to antagonize America, but he doesn't want to kill the Russians. He wants to basically back NATO off, and he doesn't want to allow this military base to be made. Well, that is a civil decision by the elected government of Romania, decided by the hearts and minds of the voters of the Romanian people. But that civil action will either, in NATO's eyes, win the war or lose the war. So the problem is it would kind of be something of a diplomatic incident, shall we say, if NATO rolled in and did, Slobodan Milosevic-style air strafing of, airstrikes against the Romanian parliament building and rolled into the capital with tanks and troops just because, the president was responding to the democratic will of the people. So you need another mechanism to influence these civil affairs. Enter civil military. And this is where you get U.S. aid in this, as well as U.S. aid for psychological operations.
The Russia Neutral Party, which just won the election in Romania, takes power. That party, which campaigned on ending all support for Ukraine in the war against Russia, that it would massively cripple NATO's ability to carry out a successful campaign on behalf of Ukraine, because Romania is the main weapons transshipment point from all CIA and UK arms that are warehoused in Pakistan. There's a major sea bridge, there's a major air bridge that allows U.S. weapons which are warehoused in Pakistan to support initially the Mujahideen in the 1970s, and then Al-Qaeda, and now ISIS. Serendipitously, this is happening the same week that ISIS just took effective control over Syria. They're now the sitting government.
I seem to recall a certain event several years ago where the United States withdrew from a country that and left a whole bunch of munitions there. Wonder where all that wound up.
But those arms initially flow from Pakistan, from the south, and then obviously Turkey through the north. But there's this transshipment route from Pakistan to Romania, and Romania into Ukraine. And if those weapons caches and munitions are stopped because the sitting government in Romania does not want to be hostile to Russia and therefore shuts off the military aid to Ukraine, there goes Ukraine. And so here they are sitting there essentially with their thumbs up their butts, trying to think of a reason to cancel the elections so that they can continue their war on Russia. And so what they've done here is something that was sort of attempted to be done here in the U.S. in 2016. If folks remember, Norm Eisen and the legal hatchet blob team in 2016 tried to get members of Congress to annul the election results on January 6, 2017, by arguing that Russia had interfered on U.S. social media. Now, they were unsuccessful in that campaign. I think something like only 13 or 16 members of the House of Representatives were on board with that plan. But evidently, they pulled that off in Romania. And my question is who at the State Department, who at USAID, who at the National Endowment for Democracy leaned on the Romanian court to make this happen?
This week, Romania? We're back in Romania? Oh, that is so dirty. Look, I said this before, but I think the British government and possibly the American State Department, but I'm pretty sure that the UK Foreign Office leaned on Romania. I shouldn't say pretty sure. I think there's a significant likelihood. Frankly, it would be, if he was doing something like what he was accused of and saying the things he was saying about it, I feel like he probably wouldn't say it that way. But the fact is after what they did to friggin' Julian Assange with the rape allegations, Donald Trump with the rape allegations, all that. Look, all I'm saying is I don't know the facts of the case, but what I do know is that NATO has been extremely, extremely, extremely concerned about the narrow hold of NATO loyalists on the Romanian parliament. And they're very concerned about young people in Romania being radicalized by online news to not support the war effort. And with Tate having the megaphone that he has, and when he tilted so hard against the Ukraine war, because he wasn't talking about that 3 years ago.
Remember what we were talking about a couple months ago when Andrew Tate declared his candidacy for prime minister. And we talked about that. We were like, this is a very interesting connection. Romania being a hub for all of this. And then Tate comes out and he drops his, he's in Romania. He comes out and drops his candidacy for prime minister. And you go down and you listen, you look at all the things. He comes out really hard against immigration. He talks about essentially, we didn't know what to call it back then, but essentially doing a Doge. Talking about bringing in a blockchain, increasing efficiency in government. It's very interesting talking points that he had that are very, very similar. I think it was a lot more than 2 weeks ago. I mean, my sense of time is all sort of screwed up, but it was before the inauguration, I'm pretty sure. I think this was, I want to say this was like beginning of January, maybe. When, let's look it up real quick. Andrew Tate announces UK PM. It says 1 month ago. January 10 is one of the articles. January 15, January 10. So yeah, it was early January. So, Stub Chef says, I'm still waiting for the Astrolabe to have a spot in the White House press room. I will not be satisfied until it happens. Well, yeah. I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting too. So this is all very, very interesting. That Romania is becoming more and more of it looks like it's going to be the next Ukraine. And Andrew Tate is in Romania, and so much of this is being pushed through the UK Foreign Office in cooperation with USAID, but USAID just got taken out. And so now they're scrambling to try to keep this whole thing together. And now Andrew Tate is in the United States. And I haven't followed up on that story. I just saw some details on it and was like, okay, I got to go back and look at that. But what's going on here? What's going on here?
He was doing what he was doing with, all this like Hustler University stuff, like way before that. But when he married it to the anti-war thing, to the anti-NATO thing, it was like the Martin Luther King situation, which they also, did all this stuff about messing around with women and all that. The fact is like, I do think NATO wanted to take Tate.
Breaking. Mike Benz compares Andrew Tate to Martin Luther King Jr.
Out. I have no idea what happened in this case. But Romania is a really interesting country because it is the principal way that arms are smuggled into Ukraine from Pakistan. Let me show you guys something. Because this
red flag on Benz is that he says Ukraine instead of the Ukraine. But I do have to say, I sometimes have to, I've heard it so many times now that I have to consciously make an effort to keep saying the Ukraine and Kiev. The relentless drumbeat of propaganda works even when you know that it is what it is.
Relates to this, because again, this is Newsweek Romania. Now, Romania, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at this. This is just 4 or 5 months after Russia invaded Ukraine. UK, remember I said it probably came from the UK with Romania versus Andrew Tate. And it so happens that the UK made an air bridge between Pakistan and Romania to transport artillery shells.
Whose war is this again? The UK. Great Britain made air bridge between Pakistan and Romania to transport 122 millimeter shells to Ukraine. Whose war is this? Is this actually Ukraine's war? The Ukraine's war? It's definitely not the United States' war. Who is pushing this war? Who is trying to make it happen at all costs? With significant growing distancing or unease with this angle from within continental Europe. Lurch says the country is called Ukraine, not the Ukraine. Don't get it. Because it's a fake country. It's a fake country. It's a region. It's a region that has been called the Ukraine. I can't remember exactly what Mirachuk just jumped in the chat, so he may get to this before I can look it up. But what does the Ukraine mean? The steppe frontier or steppe borderland. So it's like that. It's like that geographical region, the Ukraine, and borderlands. So they made a nation called Ukraine, but it's a fake nation. So it's like a linguistic thing. I grew up until, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, I never heard anybody call it Ukraine. It sounded weird. It was always the Ukraine. Russia and the Ukraine. It was the way I always heard it my entire life. And it was Kiev. Literally never heard an American person call it Kiev until the invasion. So these were like distinct propaganda things that were the email went out. This is how the linguistics are going to work now. You're going to call it Ukraine, pretend it's real, and it's no longer Kiev, it's Kiev, which I'm sure has something to do with like maybe the Ukrainian pronounces it more like Kiev instead of Russian, or I'm sure it's something like that. I don't know for sure. But yeah, it looks to me as if somebody's got some war bonds that they're very concerned about. I don't know. It's just speculation.
Yeah, to transport artillery shells. What happens if there's a change in the Romanian government? Because too many voters are listening to Andrew Tate, who's living right there, projecting one of the biggest social media influences on all social media before he got banned from everything, if you remember, which also happened post-2022. If the government of Romania decides to go back to its historical roots of being allied with Russia, and they vote for a populist candidate or a NATO-skeptical candidate for president, or if the parliament shifts parties, what happens to all of the arms being shipped to kill the Russians to Romania from Pakistan? How many times today do we need to mention Pakistan? Right? Ryan Ruth was recruiting people from Pakistan. John Brennan was running CIA operations in Pakistan. Zbigniew Brzezinski was running CIA operations in Pakistan. Barack Obama flew to Pakistan while John Brennan and Zbigniew Brzezinski were there, while the Mujahideen was getting set up. not only was Ryan Ruth recruiting people from Pakistan, he was also trying to purchase passports illegally from Pakistan. Remember, Pakistan is just CIA, right? The State Department literally overthrew the government of Pakistan last year. Here's what I wrote. This is like a screenplay out of a Ben Stradamus fever dream. This is from The Intercept. The State Department held aid and sanctions, so that's financial bribes and sanctions, over Pakistan's head unless the Pakistani military, the military and intelligence, and Parliament installed a State Department-approved president. This is Pakistan. Secret, from The Intercept, secret Pakistan cable documents U.S. pressure to remove Imran Khan, who was a popularly elected populist president. Pakistan is too precious as a CIA clearinghouse, as a military arms transshipment point, to have a president who is aggressively neutral. Aggressively neutral.
Bryce says, okay, why does Pakistan equate into this? We can't go Merc Terry's there, but we can recruit and ship out war materials there. Remember, there is no we here. This is not a we. We have no interest in Pakistan. But who has a centuries-old interest? I guess centuries may be a little too strong, but basically centuries. Yeah, centuries. A centuries-old interest in the region. There's one nation in the world, and then the the golem creation of that nation that have an interest there. And I just cannot wrap my mind around it being a coincidence that Andrew Tate is featuring in this the way he is. He's definitely owned by someone. He has been set up by someone. Someone is funding him, protecting him, promoting him, or some combination of all of the above. And I'm not convinced, like, are we saying here that this is like one of their massive, super crazy 4D chess moves? Where all of these like insufferable queers came up with this idea that what we're going to do is we're going to buy off and promote Mr. Like alpha male bro to completely repudiate everything that we believe in and serve as like one of the main hubs of opposition, building up sentiment against us. Really? That's projecting a pretty remarkable amount of foresight and confidence and competence on a bunch of people who have demonstrated that they are not capable of foresight and competence. Now, I don't know for sure who he's representing. Like if you put a gun to my head and you said, name the cabal or whatever, it would be something like U.S. defense interests. But I wouldn't really be able to get it a whole lot more specific than that. Is he on Peter Thiel's payroll? I don't know. But I wouldn't be shocked. And I'm also not like just trying to say, oh, he's a Thiel guy, but I'm saying like that sort of aspect of the world. Someone who's clearly in opposition to the existence of the EU and the City of London and all of their little proxies and this entire world that they're trying to set up. And someone who apparently is aware, or some group of someone who apparently are aware of the profound strategic importance of Romania and have been aware of it for years now. It is very odd how he really seemed like he was in the shit there for a little while. And then all of a sudden he just was let out of prison and he's on house arrest. Yeah, his house arrest just got withdrawn, or at least withdrawn even more, like a month ago. So he's actually now free to leave Romania. And then he shows up stateside. Huh. Very interesting coincidences. So here is the Alex Jones bit with an update, and he goes through. He has a bunch of stuff in here that he goes through the specific details and then adds some other stuff that I just want to just play the whole thing. But this is Călin Georgescu was arrested, and this is the list of things that they're charging him with.
They have charged him with stuff that sounds like it from Alice in Wonderland. That's Călin Georgescu. All right? Let me read over this for you. Initiating or establishing an organization with a fascist, here's the Soros stuff, racist or xenophobic character. He just says they should be sovereign, they shouldn't have open borders. Joining or supporting such a group in any form as provided by Art 3, Para 1 of Emergency Ordinance 31-2002. So they're martial law provisions. Now here's the key. Public promotion of the cult of individuals guilty of committing crimes of genocide against humanity and war crimes. Because he doesn't want World War III. As well as the act of publicly promoting fascist, legionary, racist, or xenophobic ideas. So just legionary is just a group of citizens together. Concepts or doctrines as provided by Art 5 of the Emergency Ordinance. He is now on house arrest for 60 days while they go ahead and have the new election. Just like they tried to take Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine. But we had enough gumption, enough history.
Exact same playbook. This is the exact playbook. They tried to run the exact same thing on Trump. They use the same methods. They have a fingerprint. And you can start putting these together and you can conclude, wow, look at this. Every single one of these things operates in the exact same way. Almost as if it's the same group of people utilizing the exact same playbook toward the exact same ends.
To override that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have massive breaking news on the Russia-Ukraine World War III nuclear war front. NATO is building their biggest base. It's already basically completed on the coast, on the Black Sea of Romania, pointed right at Russia and right at Ukraine. Romania is a NATO member, and if they can start a conflict with Russia, they already have troops for years in Ukraine battling the Russians. That will bring NATO directly in via Article 5. Now, the real president who they admit won the election months ago that was canceled by NATO and the Soros group and USAID money, hundreds of millions on record that came in, was arrested right after he was on the broadcast yesterday going to sign up for the next election and do paperwork. Just minutes ago, we got this from his wife and from his campaign. He's been charged with a whole litany of things. When you hear this, it sounds like the left, because it is. It's George Soros's government. And they know he's even higher in the polls now that they canceled the last election. A new election's coming up. And so they have charged him with stuff that sounds like it from Alice in Wonderland. That's Colleen Georgescu. All right? Let me read over this for you. Court press release. The initiation of criminal proceedings.
Yeah, doesn't Alex look great? No coincidence that right when the White House gets taken over and they're opening things up to alternative media, and people start even like actually seriously talking about Alex Jones for press secretary. He loses a bunch of weight, obviously stops drinking, gets himself real cleaned up, and he's obviously wearing like more expensive clothing than he usually does. He's more dressed up, more clean cut beyond just the weight loss. Might we see Alex Jones as like some sort of a communications official for the White House? Could he be press secretary, acting press secretary for a period of time? Can you imagine? Once upon a time, it was unthinkable. He was like the first man ever to be canceled. Like him or maybe Molyneux. I can't remember exactly when they happened with respect to each other. So long ago. Get completely debanked. And how far back he's come. It's so good to see.
Proceedings against a defendant, Colleen Georgescu, for committing the crimes of incitement to actions against the constitutional order, criticizing they canceled the election that he won, communication of false information, etc. Everything he's saying is true, but this is the political correctness all over Europe, England, Canada. This is what they want here. The case, prosecutor from the criminal prosecution section of the prosecutor's office attached to the high court, the justice has decided hearing today to initiate criminal proceedings against individual for committing the following crimes. So this is an indictment via press release. Incitement to actions against the constitutional order, being popularly elected, in an attempted form as provided by Art 47 Criminal Code in relation to Art 32 Criminal Code in relation to Art .397 Para 2 Criminal Code. Communication of false information as provided by .404 Criminal Code. This is speech crime. False statements in a continuous form as provided by Art 326, Para 1, Criminal Code, with application of Art .35, Para 1, Criminal Code concerning sources of funding for the electoral campaign and asset declarations, going after him for campaign money. Initiating or establishing an organization with a fascist, here's the Soros stuff, racist or xenophobic character. He just says they should be sovereign, they shouldn't have open borders. Joining or supporting such a group in any form as provided by Art 3, Para 1 of Emergency Ordinance 31-2002. So they're martial law provisions. Here's the key. Public promotion of the cult of individuals guilty of committing crimes of genocide against humanity and war crimes. Because he doesn't want World War III. As well as the act of publicly promoting fascist, legionary, racist, or xenophobic ideas. So just legionaries, just a group of citizens together. Concepts or doctrines as provided by Art 5 of the Emergency Ordinance. Initiating or establishing an organization with an anti-Semitic character, joining or supporting such an organization in any form as provided by Art 6, Para 1 of Law 157/2018. We specify that the initiation of criminal proceedings is a stage of the criminal process regulated by the Criminal Procedure Code aimed at creating the procedural framework for gathering evidence. Oh, they don't have the evidence. As activity that cannot, under any circumstance, override the principle of the presumption of innocence. Oh, isn't that nice?
What was that? It was aimed at creating the procedural framework for gathering evidence. An activity that cannot, under any circumstances, override the principle of the presumption of innocence. So they're creating the procedural framework for gathering evidence, and they're arresting him and putting him under house arrest for 60 days.
As activity that cannot, under any circumstance, override the principle of the presumption of innocence. Oh, isn't that nice? He is now on house arrest for 60 days while they go ahead and have the new election. Just like they tried to take Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine. But we had enough gumption, enough history to override that. He was arrested within hours of being on the show yesterday. And they just released him, and they say he has a gag order and can't talk to anyone. Where have we heard of that before? But Trump just ignored it. If I was him, I would go on the air, plead to Trump and others and say, this is tyranny. They're trying to use our country to start nuclear war. That's on record. Soros and USAID funded this. That's all come out. Got stacks of news here. Been covered for months, even before the election. And Flynn 6 months ago said Romania would be the detonator. You might know a thing or two, the former head of defense intelligence, former national security advisor to President Trump. The national security advisor, who's joining us here in just a few minutes. So this is huge. They intend to still have this war. And Romania's had troops for over 2 years in Ukraine. Now they've got these military bases, the biggest NATO has, and they are pointed right at Russia. And the people of Romania do not want this. And I've followed this guy for years, former high-level UN diplomat, former Club of Rome, all of it, been speaking out 15 years since he left them, saying they're evil, they want to collapse civilization. You heard him yesterday, just like Trump, just like me, just like you. The top economist. And he's free market, he's MAGA all the way, and he just wants industry and jobs and doesn't want nuclear war. And they were under Russian control forever. He's not for that either. And neither the Romanians. They don't want to be under globalist control now, and they've had a coup. It's not Russia that did this coup. It's NATO and the EU that bragged about it, the EU Commission, and said, if we don't like the German election, we'll cancel that. Now they're saying they may not even let the new conservative parties get in power. So it's incredible. Hour number 2 coming up. Pray for Colleen and his family. This is just so disgusting. But hey, this is the fight we're in. And Alexander Dugin on last week, they blew up his daughter last year right in front of him in a car, killed her. It's a war. Now, 6 months ago, and even just a few months ago, General Flynn, who's joining us 6 after, said the globalists are going to try to use Romania as the detonator when Trump gets in to try to go to full war with Russia. Now it's happening. So the Soros globalists are in full control. They've staged a coup. They've arrested the real president who won. Yesterday was on the show. Yesterday got arrested right after it. He's now been charged with treason of being a racist. It's all Soros leftist garbage. We have exclusive information on that. But Mike Benz is a really smart researcher and advisor to Trump and speechwriter. And he's done a good job breaking down how NATO canceled the elections a few months ago. This is him a few weeks ago on with Joe Rogan laying out some of the facts of why Romania is so key as the detonator to bring us to full nuclear war and how the globalists plan to create a crisis and probably attack Romania and blame it on Russia as a false flag to get us to full World War III as part of the exchange.
The war against Russia right now. NATO believes we need to build the single largest military base in all of NATO on the Black Sea coast of Romania that points straight out in a line at Crimea and move. This base that's under construction is 100% bigger than the biggest current Air Force NATO base in Europe. See, there's an election going on in Romania right now. You may have heard about this. The canceled election in Romania with the Georgescu, this right-wing populist figure who has pledged neutrality in the war. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to antagonize America, but he doesn't want to kill the Russians. He doesn't want. He wants to basically back NATO off, and he doesn't want to allow this military base to be made. Well, that is a civil decision by the elected government of Romania, decided by the hearts and minds of the voters of the Romanian people. But that civil action will either, in NATO's eyes, win the war or lose the war. So the problem is it would kind of be something of a diplomatic incident, shall we say, if NATO rolled in and did, Slobodan Milosevic-style air strafing of, airstrikes against the Romanian Parliament building and rolled into the capital with tanks and troops just because, the president was responding to the democratic will of the people. So you need another mechanism to influence these civil affairs. Enter civil military. This is where you get U.S. aid in this, as well as U.S. aid for psychological operations.
The Russia Neutral Party, which just won the election in Romania, takes power. That party, which campaigned on ending all support for Ukraine in the war against Russia, that it would massively cripple NATO's ability to carry out a successful campaign on behalf of Ukraine, because Romania is the main weapons transshipment point from all CIA and UK arms that are warehoused in Pakistan. There's a major sea bridge, there's a major air bridge that allows U.S. weapons which are warehoused in Pakistan. Took offense to Turkmenia before they are. They've done viewing for
Clean thought crime.
Something like only 13 or.
All right, folks, we're going to break. President Călin Georgescu needs our prayers. He's been charged with crimes against humanity and literal thought crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, after being arrested.
All you got to do is just kind of go, you know what I mean? Big brain is kind of, Sometimes that's all you got to do. Just relax a little bit. I mean, you always see when Trump's even tired, like midnight, he goes, it's just natural. They don't just do that in 300 when they're about to battle. That's all based on reality. You have to just activate the synapses and the animal instinct while driving the cerebral cortex with your higher functions, but energizing it with the emotion. Or you just can actually channel Emperor Palpatine's my favorite. If I really need some energy, it's like a long road trip, have something 18 hours, don't drink coffee. I just literally go, no, 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 power, unlimited power, Little trick. That's Jones Motivational. And the one place you support this battle and get the best supplements, Shellology, silver collectible coins sold out, YellowStone.com, are still available at RealAlexJones.com.
Yes, sir, Mr. Alex Jones, sir. I'm your top guy. So Sanji said Trump has to have been briefed on this, and I would not be surprised at all if this is something they were discussing with Starmer there. Because all of this is all implicated together. And understand the implications here. You have the president is sending his close personal friend to Russia to negotiate directly with Vladimir Putin. I posted something on Twitter about this the other day. I was thinking about this, that you have both of these guys have the opportunity to big dick each other right now. Because Putin could easily just kind of dick Trump around and be belligerent if he wanted to, but he's got a strong incentive in working with Trump. Trump needs Putin to work with him. Putin needs Trump to work with him. Both of them are better off when they have the other one on board. Now, obviously, they still have their own interests, but they have a strong incentive to work together. And you can see in the way that they're negotiating, they're showing respect for each other, for the station that each one represents. So Trump isn't going there and negotiating with him personally. So Putin is the first one to take the step of negotiating with Trump's envoy. But yet it's Trump who has to send the envoy. Trump has to go initiate the negotiation, send his envoy over there. Then Putin goes down to meet the number two, but that envoy is his close personal friend, which is you have the head of state who doesn't trust any of his other advisors. He gets his close personal friend to go negotiate this. So that itself is a show of respect to Putin. And then Putin receives him. And they meet with just them, nobody else. It's not like some like kind of gay-ass delegation that's unserious, and Trump could do that. He could send over a delegation of a number of different people, which is kind of disrespectful to Putin. Like, Putin's just going to respond with his own delegation. I'm not going to take my time out of my day to do this. So this is genuine statesmanship we're watching between the two of them. And they're talking about not just negotiating it into the war, but establishing trade deals and dropping sanctions and reintegrating their economies. Meanwhile, the UK and the EU are rigging the Romanian election. The guy who won the first round and is entitled to go to the second one, they cancel the election, and then they put him in prison to continue having the election in the name of democracy, so that they can install someone who will allow them to continue funneling weapons up to induce Russia into a war. And there are people within the American government, within the American business class, within the American banking class, who are cooperating with that, facilitating that process. This is a federal government at war with itself. And there is no détente within this. Once you reach this level where you have this level of conflict within a single institution with these type of stakes, it's a all-out war. Neither side can back down. Each one is incentivized to continue escalating and escalating and escalating. Very, very high-stakes stuff. But the UK and the EU are really in the shit right now, and things are only going to get worse for them. Meanwhile, things are only going to get better for the United States. And the Trump administration holds the Trump cards here, because no one's quite sure what they're going to do on a given day, and they get to control the narrative and direct it where they want it to. Anyways, that is actually, no, I got one more for you guys. I played a clip of this yesterday, and then a bunch of people sent me this one. So, after all of that high energy stuff, relax for a moment. Minute and 46 seconds. Just let it wash over you.
Put your head on my shoulder. Hold me in your arms, baby. Squeeze me oh so tight. Show me that you love me too. Put your lips next to mine, dear. Won't you kiss me once, baby? Just a kiss goodnight, baby. You and I will fall in love.
People say that love's a game you just can't win.
If there's a way, I'll find it someday, and then this fool will rush in. Put your head on my shoulder, whisper in my ear, baby, words I wanna hear. Tell me that you love me too.
Make crooning great again, man. I hate that sound at the end of the TikTok video. It ruins every single frickin' video. Barely. Ugh. I am an X-man. I am an X-man. I don't. I can barely tolerate Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm glad there's those of you who can go wade through those fields and harvest the gems, and then I'll tolerate them, but I'll tolerate them in my preferred format. Dancing in the kitchen. Yeah, that's right. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you showing up. 3 hours. Not too bad. I thought it might be longer than that. 3 hours. Just hit 100 likes. Let's see if we can get to 109 before Hulk finishes up. I'm going to give him to you, but go join the King Pill Discord. We'll be watching Theory tomorrow for the King Pill movie night in the King Pill Discord tomorrow evening after tomorrow's Astrolabe. So come join us, kingpill.com. Follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell. And if you're frustrated with not getting notifications from YouTube, I always post in the Discord and I hit the everyone tag there before I go live. So that is a way you can get notified. But anyways, that's all I got. I will see you guys tomorrow. And until then, I give you Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,